Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here. As always, you are invited if you want to join us. You can take control of the airwaves. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
How are you?
And Conan.
So I don't know if y'all caught it, but yesterday the the Biden spokesperson, Jen Psaki, was...
How do you confuse calling her Putin?
Putin, Biden, it's easy to confuse tyrants. But anyway, she talked about Putin in the clip, and she was basically announcing what was going to come. She didn't give the numbers, but she was saying to people basically to expect a much larger increase in the official inflation rates.
Oh, I'm sure they're thrilled with this whole Russia-Ukraine war because they magically get to, blame Putin,
the scapegoat,
for these inflation rates.
Yeah, I think I've got the video here from the Daily Mail. Let's see if she says what she's supposed to say.
Who's the little redhead on Peanuts? The Charlie Brown.
I have no idea.
Charlie or something?
No, it's I'll look it up.
Peppermint Patty.
Peppermint Patty. That's Jen.
All right, so here she goes.
We talked about inflation long before there was an invasion, but we also know that factually, if you look.
Okay, so she's right so far. We did talk about inflation long before there was invasion. We've been talking about inflation like hardcore for the last 2 years. It was obvious.
But now they get to blame Putin. This is the actual clip I was looking for.
We've taken to address the Putin price hike.
The Putin price hike.
I love it.
Yeah, she comes back to it too again here a little more. I don't know what's with this player. It just muted on me. Come on, lady.
The Putin price hike. That's brilliant.
CPI headline inflation to be extraordinarily elevated.
She said we expect the CPI headline inflation, which they came out with today, this news conference was from yesterday, would be extraordinarily inflated. Remember, last month it was 7.9%. And again, they're always a month behind, so 7.9% was for February. They released March's numbers today.
Due to Putin's price hike.
Due to Putin's price hike. So the increase is all due to Putin.
Holy crap. So the gas prices, as we're at, inflation in general is where it's at, all because of
Putin. The Putin price hike. They even have a name for it.
We expect a large difference between core and headline inflation, reflecting the global disruptions in energy and food markets. So core inflation.
Right. Disregarding the nosh that she just said, what is the government inflation rate that they're giving for the month of March?
8.5%.
Versus
and that is
what was last month?
7.9%. It had been going up by like 0.1, 0.2%, but so it's jumped up quite a bit.
And that's the new rating system. This isn't what they used back in the 70s.
Really?
No, they changed it just like they changed how you record unemployment in this country.
Well, regardless, this is a 40-year high. These are the highest inflation numbers, official government numbers, since December of 1981, when their numbers were at 8.9%.
That's rough when even their wonky little math doesn't hide the inflation.
Yeah.
Right, that's the whole reason they invented their math. Apparently 50% is the number for hyperinflation. That's the number they've always said represents hyperinflation.
That high actually? 50%?
That's what I've heard.
8.5% though is not terribly far off from that. That's almost 20% of that. So, I mean, it's getting there, man. And
oh no, it will get there.
I'm not happy about it, but I'm happy about it.
Well, I mean, the Build Back Better types want this so they could build back better.
They'll be in poverty, starving to death in the streets.
We will. Well, some people will, yes, but I mean, we will, as libertarians, will never. We'll never be able to move on to the next point in this. In this system until the system breaks. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's as a collapsitarian, it's got to collapse because there are too many people who are hanging on to, if we had just gotten Trump into presidency, this would have happened. By the way, it would be happening right now.
Oh, of course it would, because Trump started he kicked the ball off when it comes to dramatically increased inflation. The first giveaway was under Trump. It was part of the first big payout bill, the $2 trillion or whatever it was back in 2020.
Weren't all of the giveaways under Trump?
No. I think Biden presided over one of them.
Okay.
But he did oversee the warp speed. Project Warp Speed to get those vaccines out there. So all you conservatives out there who worship this guy, no, it would have happened. It'd be very, very similar if Trump was. I mean, we might still be in some countries. We might not have left a lot of armaments over there in the Middle East. Maybe that wouldn't have happened. Maybe Putin wouldn't have done the whole Ukraine thing. But everything else, it probably would be happening just the same way it's happening right now.
I tend to agree, and I think the Ukraine thing was probably going to happen anyway. I don't think Trump was, forestalling it. I think another Trump presidency wouldn't have done anything to change it.
Well, I guess it depends on how you see the narrative over in the whole Russian-Ukraine narrative and what you think is actually taking place. Is it just some mean old tyrant who wants to crush his neighbors, or is there something else actually taking place? And that's which has been taking place for decades.
Yeah, well, I mean, they certainly seem to be using it to their benefit, right? Like, so whether or not Putin did this at the behest of the American government or not, they are benefiting from this by using it as an excuse to pawn off inflation and say, oh, well, we didn't do this to you, America. It was Putin.
It doesn't include energy and food prices. Headline inflation does. And of course, we know that core inflation, energy, the impact of energy, of course, on oil prices, gas prices, we expect that to continue to reflect what we've seen the increases be over the course of this invasion. And just as an example, since President Putin's military buildup accelerated in January, average gas prices are up more than 80 cents. Most of the increase,
by the way, they were up before that too.
Yep, they've been going up. They've been going up.
Occurred in the month of March, and at times gas prices were more than $1 above pre-invasion level. So that roughly 25% increase in gas prices will drive tomorrow's inflation reading. And certainly it's not a surprise to us.
Right. No, it's just the gas.
But correlation is not causation, right?
No. Did she say that this inflation number is not being affected by food and gas?
She said there were two numbers. She said there's like a core inflation and a headline inflation.
And one doesn't include energy and food.
I think she said it was the headline one that did include that.
Because can I just say that's the only inflation that I notice right now. Mm-hmm. I'm not really buying anything else except fuel and food. Everything else is not really necessary. I guess rent.
I noticed my electric bill is up. I don't know if that's related to inflation or not, but I did notice an increase.
Yeah, mine is up too. But of course I got grow lights everywhere, and I've got miners, and
Well, it's that worst time of year, right, where you have to run the heat and occasionally fans as well.
Total side note. I'm sleepwalking again. Check this out. I think it was Friday night. I woke up. I was sweating. Now, this is very rare in my house because, of course, I keep the thermostat at 52. Yeah. I was sweating, and I got up, and I'm like, what the hell? And I realized the furnace was on.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, and I haven't run the thing in a whole month because I'm like, I just have a little bit of fuel left. Mm-hmm. I go out there.
Blame me for not wanting to buy it right now.
I go out there, the thermostat is on 100.
Oh my God!
And
what?
The frame was ripped off the wall. Not ripped off, like you can take the cap off.
Yeah.
It was off the wall. The thing was on 100.
How the hell did that happen?
I don't know, dude.
Sleepwalking.
I must have been sleepwalking.
Oh my goodness!
It'll happen, dude.
I must have been cold. I must have been cold in the night and just realized I would change the temperature. Holy crap! It was 85 degrees in my house.
I didn't know you were a sleepwalker. I knew Aria was.
It's on and off. I don't know how. I don't know what triggers it.
Has somebody ever seen you do it?
Yeah, I talk in my sleep.
You do weird.
And I move around and jostle people, pull covers off.
I'm glad to know I'm not the only one, man.
85 damn degrees. I was just.
That's excessive, though.
Yeah, it was excessive.
Aria set up a camera, I think, to record herself.
I used to audio record just to hear what I would say in the night. I don't
talk.
Didn't you talk to Mikey? In the hallway?
Okay, yes, but that was during the course of sleepwalking. That's not like laying in bed, sleeping, and talking, right?
He was actually trying to talk to you, and you were responding. Otherwise, you probably would never.
I said, anything. And I quote, "Shut up, Mikey."
There's more coming up here. Whether you want to tell us a sleepwalking story or your thoughts on the latest inflation numbers, it is the highest numbers in 40 years, according to the various media that are comparing this. And I did pull up a chart today, and apparently numbers have been as high as 20%, back in the 1940s. But then again, as you say, Conan, they changed how they measure these things, and I'm not sure when exactly they put that in place. More coming up.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You're invited if you want to join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
And Aria.
And Conan.
Talking about the latest inflation numbers. They again, these are official numbers, which means they are dishonest.
Now, I'm curious, are these cumulative or additive or...
Cumulative? Sorry.
Yeah, is that what it's not what I said?
Not quite.
Okay, well, whatever. And I mean, how are these? Like, it was 8.5% this month, and it was 7-point-something% last month. So does that mean between the last 2 months is 15%? Or
no. I believe it is the official way they talk about it is it's 8.5% from last March. So calculated over an entire year.
Okay.
If I understand correctly on how that works. So from February, it would have been up 7.9% since February of the previous year.
Gotcha. By the way, looking at shadowstats.com, who actually reports on the real numbers, like the real unemployment numbers in this country, he or she or them, they report it as a little over 12. If they were using the same
12%.
If they were using the same system as they did back in the 80s.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not actually sure how they changed the calculations, but I do know that it was changed. It was flipped somehow in order to bring it down to not so record-breaking numbers to not scare the people. Of course.
So it's 8.5% is the number they're throwing out there right now, and we're still waiting to get the other numbers. So they come out with two numbers every month. There's the consumer price index, and then there's what they call the producer price index, and that measures the wholesale prices. And that has been, I believe, last month it went over the 2 digits for the very first time in the time since I've been watching it. So that's already much higher than the consumer one. And if wholesale prices are going up, then of course consumer prices have to follow. They try to put it off as long as they can. They try to play games like shrinkflation, where they shrink down the product sizes and keep the price the same, quote unquote, to try to fool people. But
there's only so much of that they can do.
That's right. You can only shrink a product so far before at some point you have to reintroduce the old size and call it the new family size or something like that. Start the process all over again.
I broke down on Saturday. I forgot to take my lunch to work, and I went most of the day, and I was driving by some stores, and I broke down. I haven't bought what I would call a snack. In a long time.
So you mean you normally pack your own lunch? You don't go out to eat?
I went into one of these. It's called Ocean State.
Job lots?
Job lots, yeah.
Oh, that's not a place you get fresh food. You just got something packaged?
But they usually have like cheapy kind of generic food. So I got a package of granola bars, and I got back
Sticker shock.
I got back to the vehicle, and they weren't even that cheap either. Like Aldi's has some really cheap granola bars.
Right.
I got back to the Jeep and open one of these bad boys up. I'm telling you, it's like the size of a pencil. It's so small, and I
felt like kid size, right?
American kids wouldn't be able to handle. They'd be eating the whole box.
Yeah.
I could have eaten the whole box if I'd wanted to.
Wow.
I mean, it satiated me for until I got back to the house.
The whole box.
But it was eye-opening.
Did you eat the whole box?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
That was what I understood until Ian said the whole box, and you just kept going and said, "No, I didn't eat the whole box."
I'm telling you, a 10-year-old could eat the whole box easy. And there was a lot of empty space in the box, and of course these little guys were pencil thin, they look like Slim Jims.
Yeah. It's
There's no way they were as thin as Slim Jims. You have to be exaggerating.
I'm going to go grab one. I still had the whole box in the truck. I'm going to bring them in.
Okay.
It is. I'm not buying anymore. I make my own granola, but I broke down. I just had to have something a little sweet and a little to keep me going. I was having a hard time on Saturday.
It's rough out there. In fact, the Wall Street Journal has a story about how to adjust your brain for rising inflation.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Prices are changing so quickly, it's tough to know what's a good deal right now.
And this is coming from the mainstream media. They carry water for the state. One of their primary jobs is to hide the inflation, or when that fails, to convince us that, hey,
it's okay.
Yeah, you can mentally process this in a way that it's not so bad.
Yep, that's what they're doing. They're trying to console people here. They say inflation turns money into a foreign language. The rising cost of gas, food, and hundreds of other things is pushing Americans to rethink how they read every price tag. Whether in the produce aisle or the used car lot, our definition of cheap or expensive has changed. Researchers on consumer psychology say Americans trimmed spending and adjusted their monthly budgets as annual inflation rate rose to a 4-decade high of 7.9% in February. Now we know it's 8.5% for March, which economists expect to grow expect grew to 8.4% last month. Financial advisors say this recalibration can't be a one-time effort. Knowing exactly what you're willing to pay for something and examining what is a necessity should be a constant effort. Quote, "There's no going back to the way things were," said Scott Rick.
Shut up, Rick.
Associate professor of marketing of the University of Michigan. He says you have to update and roll with it. Well, the thing is, he's right. He's saying something that's different from what the politicians are saying. The politicians, people like Biden, are saying things like, we're going to try to get inflation under control. We're going to try to get inflation back down.
Yeah, but Jen is saying this is the new normal.
That's the thing. It's the messaging that they're putting out there is purposely misleading, saying they're going to try to get inflation back down. Because even if they can lower the rate of inflation, which I don't think they have any plan to actually do.
They can't destroy part of the money supply.
That's exactly right. Not easily, at least.
True.
I mean, they could. They could take dollars out of
Or they
inflation.
could create their new digital currency like they want to and
They're
move
working on
to
that
something
too.
completely different,
They're
which
working on
might
that too.
actually be the plan.
That seems like the plan, even though it's not officially the plan yet.
By the way, we were talking about these news organizations consoling the consumer. And they don't always do that because if it bleeds, it leads. And so on one hand, they're telling us that we're all going to die. Or the Russians could be dropping nukes on us any day now. Or are you going to die of COVID or whatever? Or you're going to die from mosquito bite.
It's COVID again.
And then in this story, this is their fluff piece where they're actually defending something that you should be, the actual thing that you should be scared of. They have turned it on its head and they're turned it into a fluff piece. And then they're making up this other nonsense that you should not. Hey guys, don't worry about Russia. You should be worried about inflation. In fact, anything that this news, who's reporting this?
This is Wall Street Journal.
Just everything they say, you just believe the exact opposite. like I've been doing for the last decade.
It does seem to work. I mean, if they tell you, hey guys, inflation isn't your big concern right now, you just need to recalibrate your brain. That's your sign that inflation is a big deal. If they're telling you to be scared of Russia, that's your sign that, okay, Russia's not anything I should be scared of. That's them trying to deflect you from the reality.
And Psaki, the girl that we were playing earlier, the spokesbureaucrat, she is saying this is going to keep going. Like, she basically hinted at that in her statement earlier, that she didn't say this is going to stop anytime soon. And they're going to keep blaming it on Putin. Now, the question is, how many people actually believe that? Because I've seen studies saying that a lot of people are really afraid of the Russians and that they think Putin is, the enemy, et cetera, in
they
large
can't be
numbers.
That stupid, though.
No, they are. And here's the thing I was just thinking about the other day. With COVID, they only had half of the population, or let's say half of the political population. And there was the other half of the aisle didn't believe it at all. But with this new Ukraine nonsense, now you've got all those conservatives, all those vets, all those veterans who are all on board now. So now you have all the left, and you have a bunch of warmongering veterans who are all. This is perfect. They finally found something that works.
We'll find out more. You can share your thoughts with us. 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The suspect behind a shooting on New York's subway system earlier Tuesday remains at large. At least 16 people were injured in the attack, but officials say they still don't have a motive. FSN's William Denzelo reports from the scene of the shooting in Brooklyn.
Here in Sunset Park, the neighborhood where this shooting incident occurred, you can still frequently hear and see helicopters flying overhead as law enforcement continue to look for the gunman behind today's incident. We've heard from New York's Governor Kathy Hochul. She says that it remains an active shooter situation, but law enforcement have at the moment said that it is not currently being investigated as an act of terrorism, but warned that it is subject to change. Of course, this incident occurred at about 8:30 this morning. Law enforcement saying that an individual got onto a subway car at 36th Street here in Brooklyn, threw a smoke canister and began opening fire.
Inflation in the U.S. hit a fresh 40-year high in March as energy and food prices skyrocketed amid the Ukraine crisis. The relentless rise in prices is likely to put pressure on the U.S. central bank to be more aggressive in raising interest rates. FSN's Tony Waterman has more.
March's ugly inflation number was widely expected, since it was the first month in which the war in Ukraine was fully factored in. The annual rate surged 8.5%, the fastest pace since December of 1981. Energy prices were a major driver, up 11% from the month before. The cost of food and housing also climbed higher. The U.S. Federal Reserve is forecasting 6 more interest rate rises this year, but it could be forced to get even more aggressive. The economy has become the #1 issue among American voters as the country heads into midterm elections in November.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says hundreds of cases of rape have been reported in areas previously controlled by Russian troops. Zelensky made the comments during a virtual speech to EU member state Lithuania, in which he also called for tougher sanctions against Moscow. FSN's Rosie Birchard reports from Brussels.
Torture, rape, mass graves. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says more reports of atrocities in his country are emerging daily, and he blames Russian forces. Moscow has previously denied allegations that its troops have committed war crimes in Ukraine. Addressing lawmakers in Lithuania, Zelensky urged EU countries to do more to cut off Russia's ability to finance the war through tighter sanctions, and above all by banning purchases of Russian oil and gas. While Lithuania has sworn off of Russian energy supplies, some other EU nations, including Germany and Hungary, have expressed fears that cutting imports overnight could be more damaging to the EU economy than to Moscow. The European Commission says it is looking into tougher sanctions still. Rosie Burchard, Brussels.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. You can join us here and bring up whatever is on your mind at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about the inflation numbers hitting a 40-year record high. Apparently the last time inflation numbers were this high, now 8.5% over the last year, going back to March of 2021 was in 1981, December of 1981, so 40 plus years ago. With you tonight, it's Ian,
Aria,
and Conan.
We are discussing this. Of course, you're welcome to join us and bring up whatever's on your mind. Conan, we were looking for some polling information.
Well, before we do that, I want to bring up this granola bar thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because
Conan
we did talk about that a little bit on the air, and then so let's update it. It is tiny. It is less than an ounce. I mean,
yeah, it's like a 3-bite, 4-bite granola bar, I would say, right?
I buy, maybe
3 bites.
Yeah,
3.
I buy these dog treats called, I think they're called Nudges or something. I don't recall, but it's about the size of 3 of these. I mean, three dog treats equals 1 of these, and the dog treats are super cheap, and they're meat fit for a dog, so they're probably not very good either. But this is organic, and it's less than half an ounce, and it is tiny.
Especially when you consider the last time I bought a box of granola bars, maybe 10 years ago, I got my money's worth. I got a big old monster box. They were full-size treats.
You probably still have it at home. You can probably bring them.
No, I keep the boxes.
Do you really?
No, I don't.
Oh, God.
Physically, I think it's probably exactly half the size of a Kit Kat.
It's just,
I bet you Kit Kats
tiny.
are smaller now, too.
So this is what I learned from all of this. I'm going to not go back into that store and buy something that I shouldn't have had to have bought in the first place, because I got all the food at the house.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about that later in the evening on foods that you all need to start growing right about now.
You've got the top 10 survival foods coming up a little bit later. We're discussing people and how they respond to inflation, and now the mainstream media is admitting that inflation is happening. They're trying to help people deal with it. And then I've got some polling numbers that we pulled up because we were curious about, like, well, how many people are buying this? How many people are buying the quote-unquote Putin price hike claims that Biden is making about, oh, well, it's all Putin's fault is why inflation is happening. Well, of course, anybody that knows what inflation is knows that inflation is an increase in the money supply, and the only people who control the money supply in the United States is the United States federal government via their buddies at the Federal Reserve.
Yep.
That's where the buck starts, and that's where it stops when it comes to inflation. Prices go up as a result of inflation. Prices going up are a symptom of inflation.
And that's why we need to end the Fed.
Indeed. So they say here at the Wall Street Journal, the sudden ability to know how to read price tags, the sudden inability to know how to read price tags is especially disorienting to those under age 40 who have never experienced anything like today's inflation rate. Understanding how we think about prices can help us adapt to inflation, said their expert from the University of Michigan. What we judge to be a good or fair price is influenced by individual background, income, and our mental transaction histories, he said. The prices we pay over and over again, like gas and rent, are better defined than more occasional purchases, which is why politicians so often trip up when asked to recall the price of a gallon of milk, or older people are still anchored to the prices they paid in younger days. And it definitely will hit you like a ton of bricks if you are a renter and your landlord comes to you that your year lease is up or whatever, and then comes to you and says, I'm going to need 40% more.
Yep.
That's definitely something that's like a slap across the face.
That's going to hurt.
A wake-up call.
Especially after your fuel has gone up, your heating has gone up, your food has gone up, and all of a sudden, end of the year, your lease is up. Oh, hey, by the way, I need more money.
Yeah,
the money that you don't have because you've already been strapped all year.
Right. I'd love to have you stay in the house, but I'm going to need 30 to 40% more.
But you got to be. But landlords have got to be real careful about that too, because everyone is strapped. So you might kick out one crew. Are you going to be able to fill that house with at the new asking price?
You might. I mean, that's a good question.
There's always someone who's willing to go down in order to have a place to live.
Yep.
Right. So maybe they'd be coming from a 5-bedroom house where they paid a little bit more to this slightly cheaper house where they're going to be paying a little bit less, and the house maybe isn't as nice, but
hard times are coming.
Goes down to a 3-bedroom.
If you guys don't see this, all of you out there listening, if you're
in denial,
if you're still in denial and you're worried about Will Smith and you're worried about Ukraine and you're worried about Zika still or
What's
whatever,
wrong with Will Smith?
I don't,
because I am immensely concerned about Will Smith.
I am sympathetic. And that whole
he might be in an abusive relationship.
That is why I am sympathetic. The whole reason that he's trying to remain a masculine, a strong masculine black man in this country. There is an image that he feels that he needs to emulate. And he's getting raked over the coals, and it's sad.
Is that you're not wrong. He has always been. I wouldn't even bring his skin color into it. He's always been a great role model for men in the United States. He's always kept himself together. He's been respectable. He's relatively clean. I mean, he's got movies where he cusses and stuff like that, but he does good roles. He's a nice fatherly figure. He's someone that...
Bill Cosby.
Yes, except he doesn't rape a bunch of people, right? He doesn't drug people and
He kissed his son that one time, and that was weird. Right on the mouth.
What, on the lips?
Yeah, right on the mouth.
Some families do that.
Oh, no, his kid didn't want it, though, and it was weird. It was Biden kiss.
Mark Edge, our co-host Mark Edge says that his family kisses like that. I find it weird, too. But
my family did when I was real young, but around the age of 7 or 8 or so, that sort of phazed out. But yeah, there's lip kissing then, too.
But here we are. We've changed this. We changed the important subject. We're talking about the unimportant subject. No, and the reason
we have to give these people something entertaining as they go to their starving deaths, Conan.
The reason I brought the skin color is I think is very important in this country. That's a black man stereotype where you don't. This is why the black trans community has such problems, because it's looked down upon, and you're going to get yourself if you.
You have to be masculine as a black man, is what you're saying.
Yes.
In black culture.
Exactly. And so you got Will Smith, and he's out there, and his wife is giving him the eye. You need to go do something about this.
I don't know how true that is, because there are countless videos of Will Smith crying during interviews and stuff, genuinely crying.
Yeah, in the last 2 years, it's like he's fallen off the cliff just recently.
That didn't seem less masculine to me, though. But I'm not your average person either. The average person probably does view, a man crying as not masculine.
Well, it's Well, I don't know.
To me, it's just human, right?
He
I don't do
seems
it.
to be under some level of control by his wife, because during the incident at the Oscars or whatever,
She gave him the yeah. He was laughing initially.
She
and he turned around and he looked and saw her looking at him.
Yeah,
and she gave him the go ahead. Yeah. But then after that, it looked scripted. He walks up there on stage. He still looked like he was smiling a little bit.
I don't know, man. I don't think
when he
that was
turned
scripted.
around and was walking back, he was smiling.
I mean, he had just smacked someone and gotten away with it.
But you know what? Let's stop. Let's get off this. Let's go back to inflation. We have fallen into the trap. We need to talk about what's important.
Well, so talking about people and how they adjust.
Trans Ukrainians marrying Russian black soldiers.
It's that Netflix movie is coming out. Musk is producing it as we speak.
Others find their understanding of prices adjusting when they spot a price change in their monthly utility bill or their usual coffee order, and they totally extrapolate that to the economy at large. Ida Birdhill, 55-year-old founder and chief executive officer of a cybersecurity reskilling firm in Detroit, says she's noticed price creeps affecting the usual latitude she affords herself in her everyday budget. She said she considered her Netflix subscription her individual inflation marker. When the price increased by $5, she had to make a difficult decision and cut the expense. She says, I look at my budget and I budget to the penny. I'm eagle-eyed to price changes because I have that budget. And I don't know how many people do that. I don't know how many people actually are, minute to minute, item to item budgeting things. I suspect it's a small amount.
In my early 20s, I had I can't even remember the name of that spreadsheet for budgeting. I had
There's a certain
one
name for it.
I recorded every single receipt, every check transaction. I mean, I was on top of it.
Nice.
And then I just got so used to it that I didn't need it. I still keep every one of my receipts, but yeah, I was on top.
As long as you're good at not spending what you earn, as long as you're good at saving, you really don't need to be as eagle-eyed on the budget. But it certainly does help for those that want to get an assessment of where they're at month to month. There's more coming up here. You can join us and share your thoughts. It's Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. convictions. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open. If you want to share your thoughts with maybe sticker shock, seeing something in the store that you are used to at a certain price and then seeing it being either much higher in price or perhaps slimmed down and shockingly small after you open the package. You didn't realize it. You didn't think to look at the amount of ounces in the package.
Here's another one. Keeping older food out on the shelves longer, like milk and eggs.
Really?
They have an expiration date, and usually when they start getting close, they get trucked away, and the delivery man comes and he knows where they're at in the refrigerator, and he grabs them.
You're saying they're letting them sit out though?
Yep.
Longer?
They're going to be out there. So check your milk dates. Check
well,
your
that
egg
surprises me because right now, the last few times I've been in the grocery store, the amount of product, at least at the Market Basket store here in this area, is light. Like if you go up and grab a milk, that's the only one on that part of the like that
right.
That I don't know if you would call them a stack or whatever. Like there's nothing behind it. Like there was in the milk section the other day, they had gotten rid of most of the milk and they'd spread fruit juices over into the milk section because they just didn't even have
that's the other,
all the milks.
That's the other trick they do is they spread it out and to cover empty spaces.
That's been going on for months.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. So.
I've experienced sticker shock in the sense that I don't go shopping very often. So like once every month or so, I need to go and stock up on cat food or dog food. So I don't go often enough to see the prices increase by, 10 cents here or 20 cents there. But I go infrequently enough where suddenly I'm spending, $30 more per visit. And I'm buying exactly the same stuff that I bought when I was there 2 months ago. And it's jarring. It's roughly a 20% real life increases. It's about a 20% increase in the amount that I've been paying.
I've also noticed an increase in food, but that's only because every time I go in there, I buy like 2 or 3 extra bags of beans and rice and all those essentials that are basically just going into 5-gallon buckets. I mean, I've already got really nicely packaged, in Mylar bags and free with oxygen absorbers in there to keep, to eat up all the oxygen. Well stored, but now I've just decided, you know what? I've got a couple extra corners I can fill with more 5-gallon buckets because we just don't know where it's going right now.
With prices so fluid, one of their experts at Wall Street Journal recommends people research prices online or talk to friends and peers about what they've been paying for a certain item. The legwork really pays off for big ticket items. Without doing this work, people are more likely to accept the first price that comes along. I mean, that's always good advice to, whether there's inflation or not.
But you only shop at one store, so you're already, this doesn't work for you.
Yeah, because to me, it's like whatever.
Ian, I can tell you where the cheapest milk in town is, but if you're only going to shop at Market Basket, this information doesn't help
That's
you.
the thing, Conan.
Is it the cheapest milk at Aldi's? Is it
It's
the
at
cheapest
Aldi's, yeah.
everything at Aldi's, though?
Aldi's is cheaper. We actually go to both Aldi
Good.
and Market
Well, at least
Basket.
they're right across the street. But I mean, I also go to Market Basket, which is on the other side of town, and that could be a hard move for some people.
We usually go to Market Basket and then go to Aldi later in the week just to kind of fill in some items that we know Aldi has. Because Aldi kind of like has some things and it doesn't have some other things.
Right.
But the amount of food we get at Aldi for $30 is always more than what we'll get at Market Basket
Absolutely.
for like 45 or 50 or $60.
Is it that much cheaper?
It feels like it. Just looking at the total volume of what we get, the amount of bags.
It's absolutely that much cheaper.
Yeah.
Now you're not going to get name brand foods. You're going to get Aldi brand food.
I don't care
That's
about name
fine. I
brand.
grew up on not name brand foods.
Yeah, I like private labels.
As did I. But I mean, a lot of people, they just haven't gotten. They're not. You might.
They're going to start trying it now.
You're going to have to. I mean, read this article.
Yeah.
Talk to your buddies and have an email chat with your buddies about where the cheapest milk in town is.
Well, that's the thing, Conan. I mean, it's only worth so much time and effort to go and run around. Like if your time's limited, if you're busy,
and how much fuel did you spend driving all the other side of town?
Right. So picking a cheaper store overall and not running to 4 different stores and spending the whole day. So, but you might save $5 if you run around the whole town, but then you've spent an extra 3 hours. So Pharrell Goldman, a 45-year-old enforcement supervisor in New York, says he used to consider $1,800 for rent a very reasonable price to pay, but now he's looking to move for the first time in years, and he's noticed rents have skyrocketed. He might have once recoiled at the priciness of some of the places that he's browsing, but he said now he's trying to accept that these higher rents are here to stay, and his $1,800 benchmark is no longer the norm.
Get the hell out of New York, man.
That would be a good first step. I suspect he's getting not much more than a small room for $1,800 in New York City. That sounds like, a closet.
Yeah, there was some article I read a few weeks ago or a few months ago that was essentially about that. It was the price of rent in New York City and just large cities in New York and
large cities in general. Look at some of these horror stories like in Japan.
How insane some of the rents are and what you get for some of those rents. I mean, some of them you end up basically in a bedroom that used to be a bathroom that's now been converted into a bedroom. So I mean, it's a tiny, tiny amount of space, and it's $1,400 a month or $1,800 a month or something like that. So yeah, this guy paying $1,800 a month. It was probably a studio apartment, one bedroom,
and
no
then
kitchen.
And then what do you get from all this? You get these YouTube stars who are like glorifying tiny house living and tiny apartment living, and look what I can do with this much space.
Well,
and everyone's
have
like,
an
"Ooh, that's
actual
cool." And
kitchen,
I'm over
you're
here, I'm
doing
like,
better.
"Man, where do you store your tools at?"
Those people don't need tools.
Well, exactly. So
what would they need a tool for? They're in an apartment building, the apartment complex.
And what happens? They are reliant on someone else to survive. And I'm over here. I'm like, cut out. If you want to save money, cut out the middleman.
A lot of them don't even go to the grocery store.
Then you don't have to work but 2 days a week, which is the way that I do it. So, but of course, I spend the rest of the week doing my own work. Fixing my own car and growing my own food and
they
the
don't
whole
even
nine.
have cars, Conan.
That's
it's
another
a city life, man. It's a completely different existence.
And when the food runs out, you're stuck in the city, and it's going to be harsh.
Yeah.
You're literally, you're going to be eating each other. Or you might not be.
They'll
you
eat
might
the
be.
dogs and cats first.
Oh God!
Just look at China. They're going to be pounding the dogs over the head with a cast iron skillet, and they're going to be stewing them up for supper that night.
Do you see the? Well, I don't know what they're doing with those bodies. That's an interesting question.
I mean, they're almost certainly going to come back in a few days. Hey guys, look, we found some meat for you to eat.
If they're really afraid, well, here's the question: are all the dogs and those cats being rounded up? Is it because the owners have been shipped off in boxcars to quarantine camps, or are the animals suspected of having COVID?
No,
it's hard to say.
If that's the case, then I don't think they'd be allowed to consume them.
I got to tell you, man, as someone who, I would die for my 2 cats, right? But
Sure.
if I was living in Shanghai in these circumstances, those cats have their best chance if I just open the door and let them go. That's their best chance of survival.
Why would you say that?
In a city,
Because
yeah.
I can't feed them. I can't even feed myself, so I've got nothing for the cats to eat. Their best chance is to go out there and try to hunt some birds or some mice or something.
I would say in a city, a cat will go feral real quick and survive.
Yeah, I imagine my cats would come back each
but not
day.
out in the
Not
woods.
against the 5 dogs. I saw a video
Right.
from Shanghai where they had 5 dogs, like a pack of dogs, where literally there was one cat being passed around and like shaken and killed by these crazed dogs because there's no humans around to take care of the dogs, so everything's going back to nature.
Wow. So the cats went out to eat. Right,
the
because
dogs
their owners
and the dogs went out to eat.
Yeah.
And the owner said, okay, well, we can't do anything with these dogs either, so let's turn them loose.
The dogs were supposedly, the story was, the reason why these dogs are on the street is because humans are taken to the quarantine camps.
Which
and
is
so
probably
the dogs
true
just get
to a
out.
degree, but it's also true that the people can't, if you can't feed yourself, you can't feed your dog.
Yeah, well, give it another couple of weeks, and that pack of dogs is probably not going to be around anymore.
I suspect
not because the authorities came after them, but because hungry citizens.
People.
There's a lot of people in Shanghai.
Well, there was some video of people that were rampaging into a grocery store. So people are starting to come out of their houses, although I also saw footage in the last couple of days of military members being called into the city, so things may get really ugly.
Hold on. The grocery stores still have food and the people are just obeying and staying at home while they're starving?
Exactly. The fact that so many millions of people are complying with this new lockdown.
Yeah.
And they're just, I don't know if you do play the video of them wailing.
Yes. It's horrifying.
You just hear just forever, just hundreds of people wailing.
There's nothing like it. It's just absolutely terrifying.
Because they were just told that the lockdown that they were, the 5-day lockdown that they were going to put up
now
with
20-something days
is
long.
now even as another week.
Yeah.
And they've already been locked in their homes for at least 10 days.
Yeah.
But why are they complying? Because they're city dwellers and they've grown used to it.
It's not that simple. It's because their neighbors will comply. And if you go out there, you're going to get caught by one of these white coat gangs.
It'll hurt your credit system.
They're not going to hurt. They're going to break your skull. They're going to cave your skull in with a 2x4.
Aria, they outnumber the authorities 100-1.
Yes, but your neighbors aren't coming out.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with this.
No, you neglected that.
You wait till these guys are hungry. They're going to come out.
They are hungry
with their 100-1, and they are going to stomp these cops.
No, it's the same reason those planes went down on 9/11, man. Or it's the same reason nobody stood up to fight the hijackers, even though they knew they were going to die.
Well, we'll see.
One plane probably did.
Well, once people start getting hungry, people are going to start coming out, and that's what we saw a little bit of over the weekend, and that's, I think, why they're calling in the military to try to put a stop to it. We'll see what goes on. We'll update you. Hour 2's coming up. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The suspect behind a shooting on New York's subway system earlier Tuesday remains at large. At least 16 people were injured in the attack, but officials say they still don't have a motive. FSN's William Denzelo reports from the scene of the shooting in Brooklyn.
Here in Sunset Park, the neighborhood where this shooting incident occurred, you can still frequently hear and see helicopters flying overhead as law enforcement continue to look for the gunman behind today's incident. We've heard from New York's Governor Kathy Hochul. She says that it remains an active shooter situation, but law enforcement have at the moment said that it is not currently being investigated as an act of terrorism, but warned that it is subject to change. Of course, this incident occurred at about 8:30 this morning. Law enforcement saying that an individual got onto a subway car at 36th Street here in Brooklyn, threw a smoke canister and began opening fire.
Inflation in the U.S. hit a fresh 40-year high in March as energy and food prices skyrocketed amid the Ukraine crisis. The relentless rise in prices is likely to put pressure on the U.S. central bank to be more aggressive in raising interest rates. FSN's Tony Waterman has more.
March's ugly inflation number was widely expected since it was the first month in which the war in Ukraine was fully factored in. The annual rate surged 8.5%, the fastest pace since December of 1981. Energy prices were a major driver, up 11% from the month before. The cost of food and housing also climbed higher. The U.S. Federal Reserve is forecasting 6 more interest rate rises this year, but it could be forced to get even more aggressive. The economy has become the #1 issue among American voters as the country heads into midterm elections in November.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says hundreds of cases of rape have been reported in areas previously controlled by Russian troops. Zelensky made the comments during a virtual speech to EU member state Lithuania, in which he also called for tougher sanctions against Moscow. FSN's Rosie Birchard reports from Brussels.
Torture, rape, mass graves. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says more reports of atrocities in his country are emerging daily, and he blames Russian forces. Moscow has previously denied allegations that its troops have committed war crimes in Ukraine. Addressing lawmakers in Lithuania, Zelensky urged EU countries to do more to cut off Russia's ability to finance the war through tighter sanctions, and above all by banning purchases of Russian oil and gas. While Lithuania has sworn off of Russian energy supplies, some other EU nations, including Germany and Hungary, have expressed fears that cutting imports overnight could be more damaging to the EU economy than to Moscow. The European Commission says it is looking into tougher sanctions still. Rosie Birchard, Brussels.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, the countries that are making rapid plans to cope without imports of Russian energy. The Baltic nations of Lithuania, Estonia and Latvia, all members of NATO, have announced a complete ban on imports of energy from Russia. They, like the rest of Europe, are largely dependent on Russian supplies, but have concluded the country's onslaught against Ukraine is so grave, there is no alternative but to terminate their relationship with Moscow. So, how to replace the missing oil and gas? Artis Pabriks is Deputy Prime Minister of Latvia.
We would have to rely, and in Baltic case, in Latvian case at least, we have quite strong hydropower plants. We are going more in the direction of green energy with what people usually understand, wind and solar. In order to get totally away from gas, we will need probably to plan some kind of a nuclear plant. But in the meantime, I think we would have to rely on gas imports through liquid gas terminals. One of them exists in Lithuania. And another one could be quite quickly put up in our neighboring country, Estonia.
And several Russian officials close to President Putin have suggested recently that the Baltic states themselves also require denazification, the pretext used by Moscow for its war on Ukraine. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The suspect behind a shooting on New York's subway system, which injured at least 16 people, remains at large. Inflation in the U.S. hits a 40-year high in March as energy and food prices skyrocket amid the Ukraine crisis. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says hundreds of cases of rape have been reported in areas previously controlled by Russian troops. That is the latest Feature Story News. Ira Spitzer reporting.
If you're one of the many frustrated singles who suffer from online dating fatigue, you might just be in luck. A new dating website launched this week that caters to fed-up men and women who simply want to meet eligible singles with unbroken skin or open sores similar to their own. It's called Last Shot.
If you're one of those people who's just ready to throw your hands up in the air and start a life with someone who has unbroken lesion-free skin, or on the other hand, if you're open to someone who has boils and abscesses similar to your own, Last Shot is perfectly calibrated to your needs.
Boasting a user-friendly interface and affordable dues of $4.99 a month, Last Shot simply asks users to log in, then click yes or no if they have open sores. Within moments, they're connected with hundreds of eligible singles who have comparable skin conditions. Reviews have been overwhelmingly positive. Arcuri hopes to one day introduce an upgraded membership experience, which would allow exasperated singles to filter for specific skin conditions.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, kicking off the second hour of the program here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
Whether you want to comment on what's going on in Shanghai, if there are any updates on that, the inflation numbers at a 40-year record high, or whatever happens to be on your mind. Coming up, Conan's got the top 10 survival foods. We'll get into that. And Aria, you wanted to talk about de-dollarization, I believe, tonight, right?
I do. It's one of my favorite topics these days.
Yeah, it's something I think we can all look forward to. Maybe sooner rather than later.
There are
if we're
few
lucky.
things I'm looking forward to as much as the prospect of de-dollarization, as they're calling it.
Indeed. And the other thing I had here we were sort of wondering out loud, like how many people are buying the Putin price hike claims from the Biden administration, buying that the prices going up are all due to Putin. Well, according to a poll here from, where is this, ABC News, ABC Ipsos poll conducted over the last, I think, week or so, April 8th and 9th is when they did this poll. They asked people a bunch of questions. How many, for instance, support tighter economic sanctions on Russia? 79% say they support even more sanctions against Russia. 7% oppose it. 13% they don't know. 63% say they accept refugees into the United States from Ukraine. 70% say they support sending additional U.S. weapons and equipment to Ukraine. Sending troops to nearby European countries, you go to 53% supporting that, 22% against, and 24% say they don't know. And then the big question, sending U.S. troops to Ukraine, thankfully, only 17% of Americans support that.
Oh, well, good. Now, let me go back to this.
Still, I'm shocked that it's as high as 17%.
Let me go back to the accepting refugees and sending armaments.
Yeah.
All right. If you told them in the same poll, oh, by the way, the refugees are coming to live at your house, and the armaments are coming from this amount of tax dollars that are coming out of your pocket, and I can assure you,
would change.
They would change that tune real quick. But I am happy about that 17% refusing to send our children and your brothers and sisters and sons and daughters over to this nonsense war, which probably isn't even taking place.
What was the refugee acceptance rate again?
Like 70-80%?
Yes, 63%. Sorry.
And I would
you
also
get
like
63% if you told those same people that those refugees were coming from south of the border?
Oh, another good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Wait,
Ukrainians are white.
what color is their skin? Let's just put it like that, and you see those numbers flipped on their heads.
Only, by the way, on the Ukraine refugee question, only 19% opposed it. 17% say they didn't know.
And I'd also like to see that broken down into a political affiliation.
I was surprised they didn't have that in here, but they don't in this case.
Because I found the latest Canadian poll that does talk about not political affiliation but vaccine status.
Mm-hmm.
And the very interesting, the more vaccines, 3 or more doses, much more likely, 86% and up, to support the Russian sanctions, to support taking money from Russian oligarchs, and to cutting off oil shipments from Russia.
Yep.
Whereas the unvaccinated, which is a very small amount in Canada, which is very small,
They're more skeptical.
Extremely. Like, so we had 86% were in favor of sanctions. Unvaccinated people's 13% were in favor of sanctions. It was
Also,
night and day.
College degrees are a factor too. So people that are more quote unquote educated are more likely to support invasions and stuff in Ukraine.
See, now you're going to make Dan from Nebraska call.
Because master's degrees were more likely to be skeptical of vaccines in this country.
Really?
Yeah. Now, bachelor's and below, that middle ground. So it's like it's a weird Dunning-Kruger kind of a system where uneducated college or high school dropouts less likely vaccinating, more vaccine hesitant, and master's degree and up more likely to be vaccine hesitant in this country.
You said this article from Canada cited fully vaccinated as 3 or more shots.
Correct.
I don't think I even know anyone with 3 shots.
I think they're including the booster.
I know that.
They're up.
I know they're including the booster, but I don't think I know a single person who's been boosted.
Well, Kathleen Griffith has been boosted with her 4th shot, and she got a dozen
I get
tests.
That, but I don't know her.
Well, she's a celebrity, and she's got that celebrity clout.
Yeah, they want the celebrities to get boosted for sure. Imposing a no-fly zone over Ukraine, even if it could mean drawing the U.S. and its allies into direct military conflict with Russia, only 27% of Americans supported that. And by the way, that is down. So they did the same poll in March. So early March, back kind of at the very beginning of the whole Ukraine situation, 31% supported the no-fly zone. It is now down to 27%.
I wonder why that changed like that.
Opposed.
Because Ukraine started winning.
Well, and how are they? I thought they've just been talking about.
They're not winning.
I think it's just kind of a stalemate right now.
You can't believe what the media says.
I was just speculating.
Yeah. Oppose. 38% say they oppose the no-fly zone, and that's up from March, where it was 34%. 34% say they don't know, so that number is actually the same from March to April, 34%. So there you go. But the reason I pulled up this poll was, what about the price increases in gasoline? They look at who to blame. 33% say they blame Joe Biden a great deal. So they ask separate questions. So Joe Biden, 33% say a great deal, 18% a good amount. Actually, they total
so nearly
it up here.
50%.
So 51% say a great deal or a good amount. And
That's silly. Biden doesn't have a whole lot to do with the gas prices.
He is as much responsible for this gas hike as Putin is. There is so many factors involved in this, and it's you can't blame one person.
Donald Trump.
Biden sucks.
How many blame Donald Trump?
24% blame him either a great deal or a good amount. So for whatever reason, they're not blaming Trump as much. Democratic Party policies got blamed a great deal or good amount by 52% of Americans. Republican Party policies blamed 33% by a great deal or a good amount. And oil companies getting 68% saying they blame them a great deal or a good amount. And finally, Russian President Vladimir Putin, 71% of Americans say they blame him a great deal or a good amount, and then the other categories are not much or not at all, and that's 29% in total.
Well, let's remind everyone, they were supplying the U.S. with like 2% of our fuel, and everyone else, now Europe, they're getting their oil from Russia, but we weren't getting our oil
not
from
that
there.
Much. So there you go.
71% are blaming Putin.
71%. And they talked to, it's a relatively small sample, 530 adults, 18 or older.
Well, when you listen to Jen Psaki every day and she's coming out talking about Putin's playbook.
Who the hell listens to these people? People listen to Jen Psaki?
No, but her little snippets, her little sound bites are taken up on the mainstream, and they play them over and over and over again.
Putin price hike. That's the thing, right? Propaganda is all about the same message, the lie, over and over again.
If you repeat the lie enough times,
people will believe it. That's
absolutely.
That's what Goebbels said. Right? Yeah.
And I mean, it's clearly true that this was not a Putin price hike. Vladimir Putin never had anything to do with this.
So the propaganda is absolutely working on people, and it's sad, man.
And 71% of people now are saying, "Oh, this is Putin's fault," even though back in January, gas prices were going up.
Yeah, but they've been going up, and the price of everything's been going up. So they're going to also blame Putin for the price of a steak going up and the price of a granola bar.
My granola bar being shrunk.
Yeah.
At some point last year, I don't remember when it was, October, maybe November, I went to Ohio to pick up 2 cats, and someone remarked to me on Facebook that, that's amazing considering what gas prices are at these days.
Right.
So gas prices were going up long ago.
Oh, yeah. They expect people to forget that, and apparently it's working.
That propaganda, man, is powerful.
If they ever even knew it, you say forget.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's just new. It's new information, man. And
no, I think they knew. They just willingly forget. Day to day, they forget what happened the day before. Just like, we were never at war with Eurasia. We were always at war with East Asia.
We got more coming up here. We're going to get into your story about the de-dollarization. There are a lot of indicators out there that this may actually come to pass sooner rather than later. And I welcome it.
As long as it's a currency that a currency that we can control and not being controlled by we as in the consumer, as in the user, and not some government.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. But
they're trying. They are trying. Every country's wanting to bring out their own digital dollar.
You can't control that. There's more coming up here. We'll talk about it. It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. You can join us.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian here.
Aria.
And Conan.
And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. You ready to learn about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash? Crypto in general? Get on over to Bitcoin.com. Click Get Started at the top of the page, and you'll find some useful introductory style videos you can watch. The first one's all 3 minutes long, so you can head over there and start the process of learning about cryptocurrency. And if you're ready to get into crypto and buy a little bit, then you can do that through Bitcoin.com as well. They got a bunch of useful features there, including their news website at news.bitcoin.com. Once again, that's news.bitcoin.com. We continue here. We're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts, and then Aria will tell us about de-dollarization, plus on the way, the top 10 survival foods. Conan's got that story, but first, it's Major Payne on the line in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live. Major.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Well, most people, I think, believe in a higher power. And there is a sign today that says that the Almighty is not happy with the White House or the current administration.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember back when John the Baptist in the good book, when he baptized Jesus, supposedly a dove hovered over Jesus' head. Well, today what happened was Joe Biden was pushing America, and he's out in front of a bunch of John Deere tractors trying to sell his baloney. And as soon as he said the words "Made in America," a bird pooped on his lapel.
Oh, nice. You got to love that. I'll have to look for that video. Sounds like fun.
I thought that was for cheering.
Is John Deere truly made in America, or just assembled in America?
I believe they still are.
Are the parts? The parts bought in China and assembled here.
I don't know about outsourced parts, but I'm pretty sure they manufacture most of it here.
Now, why is he even going to a bunch of John Deere drivers? They're not the type of people who would give Biden the 2 cents.
Because he was trying to sell the whole "Made in America" precept. Now we still had it all going on, and all this outsourcing. There's a bunch of hooey and whatnot. He's just trying to confound the people, spread another lie, take the attention span of the normal Nat American, and distract it long enough to where it's all don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain.
It's all we know. It's all theater.
This is a midterm election year, right?
Midterm.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
For all the governors and whatnot.
Yeah.
Not for the president. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, Major Payne, for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. Probably the executives at John Deere are the types of people that donate to both the Democrats and the Republicans, and the folks the folks that work the assembly line probably don't appreciate Joe Biden, would be my guess.
No, and even a bunch of unioners who supposedly Biden is. That's what his claim to fame is. Even they are having issue with him.
Toll free, or not toll free, 603-283-6160. Let's get into the de-dollarization story, Aria, that you've been wanting to cover here tonight.
Yeah, because it starts out crazy, right? 2022 started with a surging Omicron variant.
And from who? From where?
This is from The Hill.
The Hill. Okay.
I barely even remember this. I have some recollections just from the name, and it reminded me of Futurama. But
they're up to like the third or fourth Omicron right now. Variant.
I know they're like SA.B2 or whatever. They're playing Battleship at this point.
I think they're at the G or something.
They need a new scary name is what they need. The numbers aren't going to cut it.
Yeah, the numbers aren't cutting it at all. But I mean, maybe they've realized they've lost the narrative, and it's not really something they believe in anymore. I mean, we got Ukraine, man.
Well, they never actually tried Doomsday variant.
Omega?
No, I mean just straight up call it Doomsday variant.
That wouldn't work. Omega would work, but not Doomsday. That's Marvel Comics or something. Who is Doomsday? Is he DC or Marvel?
I have no clue.
Yeah, me either, man. That's a Mark question. So a few weeks in, providing a respite, the variant subsided around the globe. However, as if the world was deprived of tragedy and was rejoicing for too long, Weeks later, that reminds me, we never got into that article about what was it? The perma crisis that I had a few weeks ago? No.
Perma?
Yes.
PERMA?
As in permanent crisis.
It's a term they're using over in Europe. We did look at it. I don't know if it was on the air.
I think we posted it to the
And
Mastodon
basically
server.
ours started 2001, November 11th?
No.
We basically been a perma
recent
crisis
thing.
ever since?
It seems like a more recent terminology, but yeah, it's something that the mainstream media has been using over in Europe to keep people frightened, calling it a perma crisis.
By the way, Doomsday is DC.
And now American media is like, the world was deprived of tragedy and was rejoicing for too long. You know, we got away from the perma crisis for too long. Weeks later, Russia invaded Ukraine, leading to death and destruction in Ukraine and economic turmoil around the globe. No, again, the sanctions did that.
That's a good point.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is not comparable to any other invasion in history.
What?
Look, man, I don't write this stuff.
Wait,
dude.
where's this coming from again?
The Hill.
The Hill.
Oh, God.
Due to its geoeconomic significance, both Ukraine and Russia are leading exporters of commodities such as crude, natural gas, iron, steel, wheat, and edible oils.
And fertilizer.
That have a direct impact on the inflation levels in major world economies. While economists were concerned about a significant drop in consumption levels arising from COVID-19 related lockdowns because they weren't asking their mailmen what sort of, deliveries they were making and whether or not consumption levels were actually down, the suppression of demand sending crude prices to $0 per barrel 2 years ago.
I remember that.
Yeah, I do
was
too
so
now.
crazy.
I had forgotten about that, man. They were paying people to store oil. And now look, just 2 years later, wow. It's a crazy world, man. Now they are concerned about the opposite. Skyrocketing crude prices touching more than $130 per barrel and natural gas hitting $5.7 per metric million British thermal units.
I found less than $4 gas today when I was traveling up to Plymouth for Joe's court hearing. Our friend Breaking the Flaw had a court hearing today.
You should, if you're going up north, you should stop in Walpole. They have the cheapest gas in the area.
Oh, is that right?
I think I paid $3.89 the other day.
Yeah, it was about $3. I think it was actually $3.89 what I paid today.
Good. Not good, but
I thought, hey, what a deal!
I know, right? You've been conditioned from the, you're rejoicing because you're no longer in the perma fixture. What was it called again? Perma what?
Perma crisis.
Perma crisis.
Yes.
I don't live in a perma crisis now. I don't buy that crap at all.
There were also price increases on wheat, edible oils. I have no idea. That's twice they've said edible oils without giving a single example.
I presume cooking oil.
Yeah.
It must be cooking oils.
Okay. And other commodities with the potential to directly impact the average Joe, not just in the U.S. and Western world, but in the global South, where inflation shocks are even more acute. Adding fuel to the fire, the U.S. chose the worst possible weapon to deter Russia.
Sanctions.
Economic sanctions.
Yeah, well, I agree with him on that one.
And that wasn't accidental, right? They weren't trying to deter Russia. They were trying to
start a war.
Yeah. I mean, that's what sanctions are.
This is the same damn thing they did with Japan. And guess what you got?
A war.
You got Pearl Harbor.
By sanctioning Russia, the world's third largest producer of crude and largest supplier of wheat.
They're now the most sanctioned country in the world, by the way. There was something about that the other day, that they're sanctioned more than Iran, more than North Korea.
More than North Korea. Wow.
And yet they're still buying their oil.
Yeah.
If they can. I mean, their country, I know Germany's one of them. There's like, we shouldn't be buying their oil, but what else are you going to do? Because your stupid windmills don't work.
There's more on the way here. 603-283-6160. The de-dollarization of the world. Is it no longer going to be the reserve currency? We certainly hope so. It'd be nice to see a more resilient market of multiple options instead of everybody leaning on the almighty dollar, which is falling in its value, which it always has since they took away the gold backing. There's more coming up here. It's just falling faster now. It's Free Talk Live.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
We just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The suspect behind a shooting on New York's subway system earlier Tuesday remains at large. At least 16 people were injured in the attack, but officials say they still don't have a motive. FSN's William Denzelo reports from the scene of the shooting in Brooklyn.
Here in Sunset Park, the neighborhood where this shooting incident occurred, you can still frequently hear and see helicopters flying overhead as law enforcement continue to look for the gunman behind today's incident. We've heard from New York's Governor Kathy Hochul. She says that it remains an active shooter situation, but law enforcement have at the moment said that it is not currently being investigated as an act of terrorism, but warned that it is subject to change. Of course, this incident occurred at about 8:30 this morning. Law enforcement saying that an individual got onto a subway car at 36th Street here in Brooklyn, threw a smoke canister and began opening fire.
Inflation in the U.S. hit a fresh 40-year high in March as energy and food prices skyrocketed amid the Ukraine crisis. The relentless rise in prices is likely to put pressure on the U.S. central bank to be more aggressive in raising interest rates. FSN's Tony Waterman has more.
March's ugly inflation number was widely expected since it was the first month in which the war in Ukraine was fully factored in. The annual rate surged 8.5%, the fastest pace since December of 1981. Energy prices were a major driver, up 11% from the month before. The cost of food and housing also climbed higher. The U.S. Federal Reserve is forecasting 6 more interest rate rises this year, but it could be forced to get even more aggressive. The economy has become the #1 issue among American voters as the country heads into midterm elections in November.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says hundreds of cases of rape have been reported in areas previously controlled by Russian troops. Zelensky made the comments during a virtual speech to EU member state Lithuania, in which he also called for tougher sanctions against Moscow. FSN's Rosie Birchard reports from Brussels.
Torture, rape, mass graves. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says more reports of atrocities in his country are emerging daily, and he blames Russian forces. Moscow has previously denied allegations that its troops have committed war crimes in Ukraine. Addressing lawmakers in Lithuania, Zelensky urged EU countries to do more to cut off Russia's ability to finance the war through tighter sanctions, and above all by banning purchases of Russian oil and gas. While Lithuania has sworn off of Russian energy supplies, some other EU nations, including Germany and Hungary, have expressed fears that cutting imports overnight could be more damaging to the EU economy than to Moscow. The European Commission says it is looking into tougher sanctions still. Rosie Birchard, Brussels.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FS.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. The number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian,
Aria,
and Conan.
And you can join us online anytime you want over at freetalklive.com. You can help us out like Dan Kraftstig has done. He is a gold level supporter of the AMPS Patreon. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support Free Talk Live. You get some cool perks, you get some benefits for joining up over on our Patreon. Just go to amps.freetalklive.com. You'll find it there. That's amps.freetalklive.com. Aria, you are sharing with us a story from The Hill about the de-dollarization of the world economy. Let's talk about more about that.
Yeah, so the last thing they said was that the economic sanctions are one of the least likely things to have an effect on Russia. They're not likely to deter Russia. Worse, the U.S. has probably set off dynamite that could burst into a recession in the next 6 months.
The opposite may actually be true. Some polls are showing the Russian people are actually galvanizing behind Putin And
that's generally what sanctions do. I mean, if they tried to, that's what happened with 9/11, right? It caused Americans to go, "Oh, you're right. We shouldn't be invading Middle Eastern countries."
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they were like, "No, invade more Middle Eastern countries."
Right.
None of these acts of aggression ever achieve their desired effect. They just create a desire for vengeance.
Yes. Unless you're trying to sell munitions, and then this is beautiful.
Yeah, some people seem to believe that sanctions are going to somehow turn the people against their own politicians,
Nope,
and
they never
it just
do.
doesn't happen.
It hardens them. It hardens them, and it makes them hate you,
the rest of the world,
of the world, and not necessarily their leaders.
However, the long-term challenge for the U.S. will be to keep the crown on the U.S. dollar's head as the leading global reserve / fiat currency. Like that death knell has already sounded.
You think so?
Yeah, the U.S. dollar with the Chinese, Indian rupee thing going on with India and
There's
Russia
a lot of
and
talk.
China.
There's a lot of talk.
It's
Russia
done.
has said that they are only going to take the Russian ruble. So rupee's India. The Russian ruble is only going to be accepted by for unfriendly countries, quote unquote. So that's the European Union countries, that's South Korea, Japan, the United States. Anybody that wants to buy oil from Russia is going to have to pay in the Russian currency. That is something that they have officially said, but the deadline they set, the 31st of last month, blew by, and they had to push it out some more weeks until they can get all
Their virtue signaling was a
bureaucracy
bit ahead
together.
of their actual capabilities, but
I take gold accept gold as well.
They're taking Bitcoin, and I think they will take gold if you're going to take Bitcoin. You're probably going to take.
I know
gold.
they've been buying it, hoarding up for many years now.
So once that does actually happen, it hasn't happened yet, from what I understand. That will be the first real domino.
Well,
I think.
I don't think it really matters whether it has happened yet or not. Like the USD has always had its status as the world reserve currency because it was the top one. It was the top currency for the entire world. Every country used it as their reserve currency, as their international trading currency. So now you have already competing currencies. The U.S. dollar is no longer the only one, even if no one's actually using it at this point.
Yeah, you're right. The market will respond to those announcements immediately, whether or not they are put into play. And I'll have to pull up the Russian versus USD chart because as Putin invaded, the Russian ruble fell against the dollar, but it came back, and it actually went back up above where it was prior to the invasion recently. So I don't know where it has been in the last week. I'll check that.
And I certainly don't expect the USD to just collapse overnight or, probably not even in the next few years as a result of this. But the decline has started. I mean, that's it. This is the moment where the decline of the USD reaches the point of no return. So the long-term challenge, they say, is going to be to keep the crown on the U.S. dollar's head. But the unilateral sanctions of the West against Russia had the unintended consequence of raising inflation levels in Europe, East Africa, and South Asia.
Yeah, I'm not buying unintended. I'm not buying that at all. This was all by plan. They knew what they're doing.
I don't know. They're pretty incompetent. I mean, they're smart, but I don't know if they're smart enough and capable enough to be able to predict the consequences of something like this on a global scale.
Yeah, Biden isn't, but his handlers are. I'm sure that they knew exactly what was up with these sanctions because we have his history telling us what sanctions actually do long term.
So Europe, East Africa, and South Asia are the largest importers of Russian wheat and energy. Given that seeking alternatives and establishing substitute supply chains takes time and capital, most economies are establishing different mechanisms to circumvent the sanctions. These range from using barter trade to trading in their own currencies over the dollar. So evidently, some of these countries in East Africa, South Asia, and Europe are trading with Russia already in their own currencies instead of the U.S. dollar as they were using, 6 months ago.
And you know what else helps? Being the size of Russia being self-sufficient and not needing your nonsense and have been actually preparing for this for years and years. Screw your sanctions. We drill our own oil. We have our own fertilizer. We have our own food. We don't need the rest of you. You throw as many sanctions at you as you want at us. It's not going to work.
And they're still friendly with China, so they need computer chips or whatever. They can still cross the border.
Absolutely.
So the latter, which is using other currencies over the USD, is igniting a debate on the use of the dollar for global trade, not necessarily among America's steadfast allies, but more so with countries that are on the fence about America's global interventions. Countries like Brazil, China, South Africa, and India that are part of the BRICS grouping. And there's a highlight here that would allow me to see what that stands for, but it doesn't seem important. They make up more than 24% of world gross domestic product and 16% of world trade. Similarly, in Africa, which makes up about 3% of global GDP and is predicted to grow 6 times in size by 2050, many countries will likely reconsider dollar trade. Developing nations and emerging markets economies cannot easily absorb inflation shocks. Well, no economy can. The only reason the United States has absorbed these 10% inflation levels for as long as it has is because of its status as the world reserve currency.
Yeah, it helps it.
Yeah. And a few of these
can spread that out amongst the rest of the planet, basically.
So that the people in South Asia are eating some of the inflation and the people in the United States aren't feeling quite all of it.
Right.
In a few of these economies, rising inflation levels could lead to a balance of payment crisis and even the toppling of their respective governments. Hence, it is natural for these economies to seek ways to circumvent America's sanctions. Even Europe, one that is part of the Western Alliance, has sought ruble-euro trade arrangements to prevent any disruptions in Russian gas supply. From Europe's standpoint, in particular from Italy's and Germany's, Russian gas keeps factories running and homes lit. Without Russian gas, their economies would come to a standstill. Therefore,
they can buy the gas somewhere else. It's just going to be more expensive.
It's going to be more expensive. They have to set up those supply lines. They have to build the pipes to get it in and all of that other stuff that they were talking about, plus money.
But they've got all those windmills. I don't understand this. This doesn't make any sense to me. They turned off their nukes. They built more windmills. What's wrong here?
Moreover, this experience could place Europe at a crossroads, prioritize the transatlantic alliance, and blindly bandwagon the U.S., even if it were to cost it economically or put European economic interests first over relations with its transatlantic partner. I think the obvious answer is that Europe should put Europe first. The impacts of these sanctions are even more profound in the global south. For example, India imports more than 80% of its crude demand, and the rise in prices will convert to inflation and even a balance of payment crisis. That's twice they've used that without explaining what is a balance of payment crisis if it buys at current market levels. Understandably, when Russia offered to sell its crude at around a 30% discount to the market price, it was rational for the government to consider that proposal. So evidently, in order to get around some of these sanctions or whatever they were doing, Russia was like, hey, we'll give you
price break.
30% off, man.
That's an incentive.
I can't imagine the average American would mind 30% off their gas prices at this point. Earlier this month in his speech, Putin spoke of diversifying reserve currencies to national currencies, gold, and other commodities. It may not just be Russia that would consider diversifying reserves. Countries in East Africa and South Asia that have been indirectly impacted by the sanctions and could very well be facing secondary sanctions will look toward other assets.
So a secondary sanction would be where they're going to be punished for still trading with Russia, right?
Yes.
The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's a very dangerous game that is being played by the United States, and it may not end in their favor. It's Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever you want to discuss, whether it's inflation or the de-dollarization of the world economy. Is it coming? Is it imminent? If so, how soon? Is it going to happen? I think it's a great thing if that does occur. It will definitely give people more options on the world scene. It would be even better if more countries started to adopt cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin as their national legal tender without doing it through force like they did in El Salvador. At least in theory, they can threaten force on people if they don't accept Bitcoin. We hear that they might be doing that in, not St. Kitts, St. Martin, which is the island north of St. Kitts, where the prime minister has begun taking his entire paycheck in Bitcoin Cash.
Nice.
And he's apparently the first politician in the world to actually do this. The New York City new mayor said he was going to take his first 3 paychecks in Bitcoin and then I guess go back to dollars, so whoopee-doo. But this guy is now saying he's going to take his full paycheck. He's made the order. It's official. It's a done deal. And he is now talking about, getting some sort of a legal tender thing through, and has specified that his proposal would be that it would be a voluntary order instead of a mandatory thing.
See, I'm still not a fan of that. I like the idea of, freeing up your nation if they want to use whatever currency they want. Sure, I mean, that would be ideal, but worst case scenario, each nation has their own individual currency or a group of currencies that they use, and Bitcoin is just sort of the reserve currency throughout the world that they use to, measure their currencies against one another. One Bitcoin is worth, 50,000 Russian rubles or 47,000 USD, and you use that to gauge the relationship between the USD and the ruble, which is what a reserve currency is supposed to do.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Don't know if that's going to happen, though.
That's what I would like to see, right?
But as more smaller countries start to adopt cryptocurrencies as legal tender, that is going to help those folks stay more financial or fiscally sound.
Certainly.
And that's a good thing for them. So I want to see more of that happen. It hasn't really, taken off since El Salvador was the first. There hasn't really been a second yet.
Well, El Salvador screwed it up so badly.
Yeah, they really botched it.
If they cannot, the problem is being able to print as much money as you need to fund your wars.
That's what we want. We want them to not be able to do that.
That's what I'm saying. That's why if more of these countries start to adopt a currency that is finite, like Bitcoin, then that will prevent them from funding wars and funding projects that they wouldn't otherwise be able to unless they could just print up some money.
That's why you're only likely going to see that happen in the countries that do not have their own currency. So El Salvador was one of those. They were using the dollar. And so adopting Bitcoin was no skin off their back because it's not going to hurt their central bank. They don't have one.
Right.
But the countries with central banks, of course, are near to, there's no chance they're going to adopt cryptocurrency as any kind of legal tender.
Like I said, they want to create their own.
Yeah, they're not going to undermine that for a moment.
And I have a list here of a lot of the countries who have been at least thinking about, or at least have names for their currencies that they want to implement. They want to faust onto the peoples.
You talking about a CBDC, central bank digital currency, or something else?
Well, I don't know how many of these countries are hand in hand with the central banks, but I know that. Here's the list of them. Dubai, okay. Who do they work with?
India.
Venezuela, Petro.
Mm-hmm.
Estonia, Estcoin. You have Russia.
Estonia, this is not the first time we've heard of them. They got something going on with Bitcoin as well. I don't recall exactly what it is.
They call it EST coin.
I could be mistaken.
Russia's got their crypto ruble. Sweden's got their e-krona.
Apparently, Estonia didn't. That thing didn't happen, according to CNBC story from 2018. Estonia says it won't issue a national cryptocurrency and never planned to.
Japan as J-coin.
Where is this coming from?
This is Kalkine Media.
Yeah, it sounds like.
But these are
rumors.
These are all old projects from back in 2017. So I'm wondering how many of these, like the Estonia one, just didn't get up off the ground. But I know our Fed.
There's a lot of
just as recently as last year they've been talking about it for years, but they really want their own digital currency, and they want to be able to give UBI out to the folks. They want to get the stimmy checks via this new digital currency.
I want to go to Stephen here. We'll get back into de-dollarizing the world economy. Stephen is on the line in Georgia. Go ahead.
Hey guys.
Hey,
Can
Stephen.
you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, so I just wanted to, comment on something that was said earlier. Y'all were talking about inflation, and one of the gentlemen on the show mentioned that he has Mylar buckets with wheat, or I didn't hear what he said. I think he said rice.
Rice, beans, you name it.
Corn, wheat.
Nope, but I do have corn, but I don't have it stored in Mylar. But I'm going through it so fast. It's for the chickens. But I have ground up my own corn and make corn flour.
Yeah, I was about to say corn will make cornbread and all sorts of good stuff. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be dark or anything, but there may come a time where that's the only thing you have to eat. And
that's
he knows
that's why I have it.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I don't think a lot of libertarians and a lot of anarchists and a lot of volunteerists think that far. So
I don't think people in general do this. I've been gardening in my yard for almost 10 years now. All of my neighbors, I have at least 500 people in my neighborhood, and they all, at least one side of the neighborhood, they walk through there, they drive past it, they see me out there, they come in and comment, they say, good job, I like what you're doing here. No one is gardening in my neighborhood. I'm the only one.
I do a show with you every week, and I'm not gardening.
I know that's what I'm saying. No one has caught on, and I just don't see it's. Of course, I have a bullseye on myself. Here I am going to be talking about foods you should be growing. People talking about my Mylar stored food. I have a bullseye all over me. People know who I am. They're going to be coming for me. They're going to the first wave might not make it through, but if there's enough of them,
Zombies.
It's here's the first thing. Here's number one rule of being a prepper.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anybody you're a prepper. But I'm doing it because I'm trying to enlighten people.
Stephen, what else you got? Go ahead.
Off-site storage location. Have a fallback area. Move everything right now, bud. Just move it all.
Yeah, but Conan's cheap. He's not going to He's not going to go out and get a storage unit.
What I'll probably do is I'll probably hire co-host Matt to come help protect me. I need a mercenary.
Okay.
So if I have to leave the property, I'll have Matt there, and he's got guns.
You can take him off my property.
I'll pay him. I'll pay him in beans and peanuts.
I was about to say you can just pay him in food at that point.
Oh yeah,
pay him in bullets.
You can have when I'm at work. Matt goes to my house, and when I come home, we just got to work on and off.
We'll share.
We have the schedule.
Thanks, Stephen, for the call tonight. Appreciate it. The numbers.
Where would you be going in the event of an economic collapse, right? Where you're worried about people.
You realize what I do for a living? When there's a lockdown, I am the only person on the streets delivering your crap.
There was no lockdown in New Hampshire.
At a time when you're worried about having to shoot your neighbors because they're starving to death, no one's going to be ordering stuff on Amazon, dude. You're not going to have anything to deliver. Society will be
deliver
collapsing.
to the rich town. It's all nothing but richers there. They have money.
And they will get eaten by the poor people who rob them before they rob you.
Well, in that case, I'll get to stay at home and I'll get a day off.
That's all I'm saying is that I don't think you'll be clocking in to do your shit.
I don't know if it's going to be that bad where you got zombies actually eating each other, like I always joke about.
Well, that's what happened in the French Revolution. They didn't eat the rich, but they broke in and took all their stuff and killed them.
Yeah, but I'm not rich.
No, but you're the people you deliver mail to are. They'll be the first to go.
Actually, I might actually have all the information. I might set up a website and say, this is where you need to go, guys.
Right?
Oh boy.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Do a good public service, man.
No, I'm actually more concerned with like riffraffery, burglary, just petty crime.
Yeah, it's going to start with people
just coming over the fence and stealing a couple tomatoes or an
gas
apple
out of your tank. That's what's going to happen first.
Well, they got to get up my driveway first, But yeah, that's and by the way, that's actually happening.
Has that happened?
You heard about the guys who parked? They had a van. They parked over one of the gas fuel cells, and they
in the gas parking lot.
Gas parking lot, and they have those wells are buried underground, and they have the spigots at the top. Mm-hmm. They got in there, opened one up, and they siphoned their hoses down there, and they siphoned the gas right up out of it.
Where did this happen?
This happened a couple weeks ago.
Where?
I'll find out in the break.
New Hampshire or somewhere else?
No, somewhere else.
That's crazy. That has to be California, man.
There was another one where the guy switched the pump handles, and sat there and waited for another customer to drive up on the other side of the island and started pumping his gas into the other dude's vehicle.
Wow.
That guy got caught.
I imagine it would be easy to catch when your hose is wrapped around to the other guy's vehicle, right?
Unless you don't notice.
The number 603-283-6160. You can share your thoughts. Hour 3's on the way. It's Free Talk Live. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden has for the first time accused Russia's President Vladimir Putin of committing genocide in Ukraine.
Your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide in half a world away. To help deal with this Putin price hike, I've authorized the release of 1 million barrels per day for the next 6 months from our Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
Biden's comments don't represent an official designation of genocide by the U.S., which is a determination made by the State Department. Biden was speaking at an event in the U.S. state of Iowa where he announced new measures to try and bring down the price of gasoline, which recently hit record levels. Officials in New York say they are still searching for the suspect behind Tuesday's mass shooting in a subway station. At least 16 people were injured when a gunman opened fire on a train during the morning commute. Law enforcement say they have a person of interest, but nobody in custody. FSN's William Denzelo reports from the scene of the shooting in Sunset Park, Brooklyn.
At a press conference, law enforcement have said that they now have a person of interest in connection to this subway shooting. They say that this person, the keys to a U-Haul that was being rented under his name had been found at the subway station. However, law enforcement are keen to add that they don't know whether this person had any connections to the shooting. We understand that 2 smoke grenades were thrown, and then a suspect in the shooting opened fire and hitting at least 10 people. Now, Mayor Eric Adams very much addressed the issue of gun violence at this press conference. He said that this isn't just a New York problem. He says it's an American problem. He added that it's impossible to clear a flood when water is still pouring into the basement.
2021 was the deadliest year in U.S. history. New data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention showed nearly 3.5 million more people died in the U.S. last year than in the record-setting year before that. FSN's U.S. correspondent Rachel Silverman has more.
The CDC says the main reason for the increase in deaths is COVID-19. More than 415,000 people in the U.S. died from COVID-19 in 2021, compared to 351,000 in 2020. The coronavirus is not the only reason 2021 was the deadliest year in U.S. history. The death rates for cancer, diabetes, chronic liver disease, and stroke also rose, as did deaths from drug overdoses.
In other news, U.S. markets closed lower on Tuesday as new data showed inflation growing at 8.5% from a year earlier, the fastest rate in more than 40 years. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, the countries that are making rapid plans to cope without imports of Russian energy. The Baltic nations of Lithuania, Estonia and Latvia, all members of NATO, have announced a complete ban on imports of energy from Russia. They, like the rest of Europe, are largely dependent on Russian supplies, but have concluded the country's onslaught against Ukraine is so grave, there is no alternative but to terminate their relationship with Moscow. So, how to replace the missing oil and gas? Artis Pabriks is Deputy Prime Minister of Latvia.
We would have to rely, and in Baltic case, in Latvian case at least, we have quite strong hydropower plants. We are going more in the direction of green energy with what people usually understand, wind and solar. In order to get totally away from gas, we will need probably to plan some kind of a nuclear plant. But in the meantime, I think we would have to rely on gas imports through liquid gas terminals. One of them exists in Lithuania. and another one could be quite quickly put up in our neighboring country, Estonia.
And several Russian officials close to President Putin have suggested recently that the Baltic states themselves also require denazification, the pretext used by Moscow for its war on Ukraine. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. U.S. President Joe Biden for the first time accuses Russian President Vladimir Putin of committing genocide in Ukraine. New York officials say they're still searching for the suspect behind Tuesday's mass shooting in a Brooklyn subway station. And 2021 was the deadliest year in U.S. history, according to new data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That is the latest Feature Story News. Ira Spitzer reporting.
Shortly after having sexual intercourse with a prostitute earlier this afternoon, local man Jacob Reynolds told reporters that he never expected the experience would bring him to new heights of emotional and spiritual fulfillment.
I was convinced that having sex with a complete stranger behind my wife's back would leave me feeling drained and empty on the inside, but my self-esteem is through the roof.
Reynolds, who said he paid $150 for a 30-minute block of time, said that his moderate expectations for the encounter were instantly surpassed by what turned out to be a deeply personal sexual communion that transported him to a new plane of emotional intimacy.
I've never felt a stronger sense of spiritual connection. When our bodies met, there was an immediate sense of familiarity and comfort that just washed over me. I think it was the most meaningful experience of my life.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live. Kicking off the third hour here. The phones are open if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
We can talk further about de-dollarization of the world economy. Further, also, we're going to get into the top 10 survival crops. Conan is going to share that with us on the way this hour. We're also going to your phone calls about whatever's on your mind at 603-283-6160. And we go back to those phones where Dominic is on the line, calling us from West Virginia. Dominic, go ahead.
Hey, I've been meaning to call in to you guys. It's been on my mind for a few days now. But I have a dog, and my dog has been having behavior issues lately. So I took her to the vet, and the vet talked to me about putting my dog on Prozac.
No, hire a trainer.
What kind of behavior issues are we talking about?
Well, I've had her for about 6 months. She's probably a year and a half now.
Okay.
Getting her nails cut, places won't do that because she just throws a fit. She's very defensive, and when guests come over my house, they're very defensive too. So, it's what's funny.
None of that's depression, though. That's just the dog needing to be trained. All respect to vets and what they do. If my animals are sick, then I need to take them to the vet. But if my animals are having behavioral issues, I need to contact someone who is an expert in getting that animal to behave in the way that I want. And that's going to be a trainer, not a vet.
Yeah, get a hold of Cesar Millan.
Fun fact, the trainer that I use for my dog actually has worked with Cesar Millan, and he actually has worked recently with a pit bull who was put on Prozac because the pit bull was in a home with like 14 other little tiny terriers that were untrained, and they would just bark and yip and behave badly until the pit bull was like, all right, it's time to put you in your place, and would bite one of them. Wouldn't injure them or try to kill them, it would just bite them. And they're like, oh, the dog's got behavioral problems, we need to put it on Prozac. And the trainer came in and was like, no, look, the dog is doing exactly what the dog is trained to do. What the problem is that you've got these 14 other terriers around here that are completely running wild, and it's driving your other bigger dog crazy because he's supposed to be in control, and you're not allowing him to control. No one's controlling this environment.
Now, was the vet trying to push this on you, or was he just mentioning it as an option?
The vet wrote me a prescription wrote my dog a prescription for Prozac, said, oh, put her on this, and he also mentioned training, to be fair.
Okay.
But
Did the vet try to
yeah.
tell you that your dog suffers from depression or something? Why Prozac?
Anxiety.
I have never in my life met a dog that suffers from anxiety.
I don't know about this vet. How long have you had this vet in your life?
Well, not long, because I've just moved recently. But here's the deal. When I was a kid, I laughed when I heard that one of my cousins was paying to put their dog on antidepressants. And I did research on this, and this isn't a brand new thing. What I'm thinking is, since everyone and their uncle is taking antidepressants these days, surely Big Pharma's got to grow their number. So,
get the dogs in on it.
And don't forget to get them vaccinated while you're at it.
Well, right. And if Americans are used to taking antidepressants, then of course they're going to think that it's fine for their animals too. Oh, I'm on them. Why shouldn't, Fido be on the antidepressants? I agree with you, Aria. I think that's a terrible
I do want to
plan.
correct myself real quick. There probably are some dogs out there who have been so sufficiently traumatized that they do have anxiety issues and stuff like that. So I don't want to say it's impossible for a dog to have anxiety or maybe even depression, right? But these are all things that with proper training, the dog could overcome, just like a human can overcome their anxiety or their depression or whatever. Give the dog some shrooms before
Humans
you get
can
on
overcome
Prozac.
depression
That
with-
is not medical advice. Do not give your dog shrooms. I have no idea what that would do.
And I did bring up Caesar as kind of a joke, but I'm actually not. Have you ever watched any of his programs? He talks about why dogs do what they do. They're pack animals, and basically they learn incorrect training. They are trained incorrectly from an early age, and then they
Bad
become
owner means bad dog every single time.
and antidepressants or whatever is just going to be a Band-Aid on a problem. It's something you could be paying for the rest of that dog's life.
You got to go to the root of the problem, and I agree with
So what
Aria.
do you three think that when my dog is terrified of getting her nails cut and she is aggressive to visitors to my place, what do you think? What do you all think would be the best way to handle that situation other than putting her on drugs?
How much exercise does this dog get? Is it cooped up in the house all day while you're at work, and was it traumatized as a young dog? Was it
I can tell you what my
kicked
trainer
around
would
and
say.
beaten?
Like my trainer would say, well, you have to ease your dog into having them accustomed to having people mess with their nails, right? You can't just grab your dog and hold it down and start clipping its nails, because that's just going to make it more anxious, more afraid, more out of control. But just start, petting your dog down to their nails a couple of times each day. Get them used to that movement.
Does the
Get
dog
them
let
used to the
you-
actual clips.
Just an important question. Does the dog let you do its nails?
No.
Okay.
Wait. It's no because you haven't tried, or no because it won't let you?
I've tried, but she just tries to pull away.
Well, a lot of dogs are going to do that.
Yeah, they
but
don't-
does she try to bite you? Does she get aggressive with you?
I haven't tried that forcefully. Being a libertarian, I don't like forcing anything.
You can laugh,
It
but
doesn't
I
feel
kind of
right.
agree with you. I mean, that makes sense, right?
Now, as far as your neighbors, the visitors are concerned, is the dog aggressive towards them, or is it fearful of them?
That's tough to say.
Well,
Either
fear
way,
can lead toward a snap, right?
Right.
Like
But if they're afraid of people, they're going to be afraid of someone cutting their nails as well.
Sure.
Now, if they're aggressive, it might be because Caesar, we need you, man.
Well, I got to agree with Aria. It's good to get a professional in that, you never know which one to hire, right? Because there's different ones out there. But
Yeah, but just about any dog trainer who specializes in dog training is going to have a pretty good idea of what they're doing. This is what
And
they
we'll
do.
be able to determine
We'll give
whether
you
it's
some
afraid
suggestions.
of people, or whether it's just a mean, bad dog, or whether it's just an inbred dog. That's another
I've got
problem.
a great, hold on,
That's
I've got a great
another problem
idea
that doesn't
we
get
can
brought
answer
up
this
a lot.
question real quick. Ask the trainer right off the bat. First question: hey, my vet wants to put my dog on Prozac.
what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, see
And
what
the
they
trainer
say.
that says that's a terrible idea,
Stick with him.
I will train
Try
your
that.
dog. Give that one a shot.
Yeah, try that, Dominic, and let us know how it goes, okay?
Cool.
Thanks, man.
Have a
Appreciate the
good
call.
evening.
Yep. Number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160.
Ari, do you actually have a trainer for your dog, or know of one who
She
would
does,
work with
yeah.
you?
Yeah.
And all right, because that's another problem I would run into.
Dude, I don't know anything-
I've met some of these animal lovers, and I don't think they're worth their salt. I don't think they know anything about what they're actually doing, and
Yeah,
they're out
absolutely.
there wasting your time and taking your money.
Well, that's why I had a trainer, right? Because I'm a cat person. My cats are very well behaved, but you want me to communicate with a dog and get it to do what I want? I have no idea, man. So that's why I brought in a trainer, and he was great, and he taught me how to communicate with her. Like they said in the Cesar Millan show, they rehabilitate dogs, and they train people. That's pretty much it. You have to be trained in how to interact with the dog.
And watch that South Park episode of Cesar Millan.
I watched
That's
it
very
today
good.
by sheer coincidence.
That's one of my favorite. And you bringing up the dog training issue a year ago made me rewatch that at the time. Definitely,
it was about
one
a year
of the
ago.
better.
She turns a year this month. So she's a good girl.
Sadly, when it comes to some of these dogs, some of them were so badly abused when they were puppies, and then you've also got dogs who just it's just bad genes, man. It's bad breeding, and or they're dogs who are just they were raised, they were reared, trained, bred. They were bred to be aggressive dogs. I'm sorry, pit bulls out there.
No, the pit bulls, they were nursery dogs. Go back to the early 20th centuries, and you're going to find pictures of them like coddling babies and
if you
stuff.
got a good owner,
centuries. What about this year? It's this
Pit bulls
100 years. 100 years of breeding. They're not the same
not
dog.
Naturally bad dogs. It's a bad owner every single time when you're dealing with a pit bull. Mandy in the chat on YouTube says she waits till her dog is asleep and sneaks up and gets one nail at a time. That sounds risky, but if it works for you,
whatever you do, don't cut too deep, and you got
to be careful.
Hit the quick, and your dog will hate you forever.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that for sure. They got coagulant though you can get just in case you accidentally cut it. 603-283-6160. It is Free Talk Live.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Email is easy, instant, and free, and that can be real embarrassing. Email lacks the eye contact and body language you get in face-to-face conversation, or the tone of voice and other nuance you hear in a telephone conversation. Email is just words, often few words. We're all smothering in spam, so we often reply in terse fashion that's easy to misunderstand. And email doesn't cost you a postage stamp, and it lacks the deliberation time it'd take to walk to the snail mail box, so it's easy to succumb to the "oh yeah" stimulus response trap. When in doubt, don't snap back at snippy messages you get. You may have mistaken the sender's intent. And unless you're sending AOL to AOL, there's no unsend. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here and bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Whether you want to talk about a bad dog or Shanghai or whatever
that was
it is.
surprising. I did not expect that call.
I like, different calls with unusual questions, so feel free. Phones are open.
You know the problem in this world, right?
There's a lot of them, but which one?
This is the number one.
Cocaine?
This is the number one problem. You have two types of people in this world. You have dog people and you have cat people.
That's a problem?
That's a problem because all the people in power are dog people. If we had more cat people, it'd be a much better place. Now, here's the only problem.
I don't disagree because I know where you're coming from.
Here's the only problem. Cat people don't want to be in charge of you. So they're not going to run for office. They're not going to be at the White House with their cat.
Hold on
How many presidents have
Didn't Bill Clinton have a damn cat?
How many pictures
Socks.
how much time did it talk? What do you mean, it's socks?
Wasn't it called Socks? Wasn't that Clinton's cat?
Did they ever talk about it?
I believe you're correct, Ian.
Yeah.
But they also had a dog.
These are not.
Do you remember his name?
I do not.
All
but
right,
it's
then.
probably Duffy or something. But,
These are not universal truisms.
but you see, we don't actually know if Obama was a cat or a dog person because he had both. We don't know if Arya is a cat or a dog person, except we do know because we know Arya. She's a cat person. She just happens to have a dog on the side.
I don't see
It's a
what it
side
makes a
hustle.
difference, man. They're a bunch of monsters. It doesn't matter whether or not they got a cat or a dog.
They're such different creatures, though, right? Like my cats, if I had to, I could just leave. Here's some food. Here's some water. Your litter box is clean. I will be back in 4 days. You'll be fine.
Do your thing, yeah.
And I would come back. They would be upset because my cats are weird and they would have missed me during that period, but they would have been fine. But if I left that dog for 4 days, dude,
He'd eat your house.
I can't imagine what I would come back to. Even if there was a way for me to manage the toilet's usage of the dog, despite not being there, it would be a disaster.
What was your prediction of Bill Clinton's dog's name?
Duffy.
Close. It was Buddy.
Oh, wow. That makes sense.
But that doesn't tell us whether Bill Clinton is a dog person or a cat person.
And, did Obama have a dog or a cat?
What it tells you, Obama apparently only had dogs, but what it tells you is that these people are sociopaths.
They're control freaks. They want to control.
Hold on. What they know is they need to try to look like you. That's why they go around and Biden goes to the ice cream place and he's eating the ice cream and they ask him what his flavor of ice cream is when he's doing the interview with his grandkids and that's why they have dogs and cats.
What is his ice cream?
Ian, there are a lot of cat people out there. Why don't these guys ever have a presidential cat on display?
Joe Biden has one.
Where? I've never seen pictures of the cat.
His name is
I've seen pictures of the dog.
I was going to guess the name.
There's the one dog that he had to put down because he was biting Patriot or something.
I was going to guess Mittens.
Interestingly, Donald Trump is the only president in our lifetime who has not had any.
He has his peons. He has his workers.
Yeah,
he seems like the kind of person who would have a pet iguana, though.
He seems like the person who would have like a robot cat. He'd probably get Elon on the phone. Like I want one of these new robotic cats.
You have to go all the way back to Andrew Johnson, the president after, I guess, Lincoln. They say he did not have any pets, but he did, however, feed white mice that he found in his bedroom. Prior to that, you have to go back to James K. Polk, who had no pets. Otherwise, they all have pets. And that's because they want to look like they fit in.
That's right. So we need to find actual pet owners who actually love their animals and have them because they wanted to have.
We just don't need a president at all, and then you've got this problem solved.
I will say, despite not having a dog, Trump was probably one of the most relatable presidents we've ever had, simply because of all the McDonald's he had delivered to the White House on that one occasion. Like every news article I saw was like, he's cheapening the White House, the glory of the White House, but they're having Big Macs or cheeseburgers or whatever. And
he was trolling them like he did with everything he did.
Yeah, that is the American thing, though. McDonald's is huge in America, so there's nothing more American than feeding your football team McDonald's.
Was there more from your story, Aria, that you wanted to share about the de-dollarization?
Not really. They talk about the hegemony of the U.S. dollar. They don't really specify that that's a bad thing or
there's interesting
why it's even a thing.
Statistic here in a Wall Street Journal story that's very similar. They say it's actually nearly 60% of the $12.8 trillion in worldwide currency reserves are in dollars. So
how much?
60% of the 12.8 trillion in worldwide currency reserves are dollars. So
there was already competition.
Well, yeah, but that's interesting. So the question becomes, at what percentage will it no longer be the dollar that is the world reserve currency? If it's already at 60%, is it 49%? Is it 33%? Like, I mean,
I would guess it's probably
obviously the competing currencies are lower and maybe 49, 30, whatever percent, and they're doing well in their respective countries.
Maybe it would have to be no longer the plurality or whatever. Maybe if it's, at 49, it probably still would be number one because the other ones would be making up the other 51%. But according to this story, naysayers think this is the beginning of the end of the dollar as the reserve currency because Russia will cozy up to China and adopt the yuan or pivot to cryptocurrencies. And China may start dumping dollars. In fact, since 2014, China and Russia have severely reduced their dependence on the dollar for bilateral trade. So again, the gears were already turning on this. The dollar has been the world reserve currency since Bretton Woods back in 1944, which was an agreement they made in New Hampshire, by the way, with the dollar pegged to gold and other allied currencies pegged to the dollar. This wasn't some bureaucratic pronouncement. The U.S. was in a position of strength after funding the Allied effort in World War II. America almost lost this privileged status in 1971 when deficits from war and welfare led President Nixon to drop the gold standard.
As everyone knew was going to happen prior to the collapse of the Bretton Woods Agreement.
And it has been downhill ever since, to the point where the dollar has lost, 99% of its value since the early part of the 20th century?
Is it up to 99%? When I first started following this, it was
like
95%
96 or something, yeah.
I would not be surprised to hear it's 90%. Wouldn't that be great, though, if they did start, like countries like China and Russia, they did start adopting cryptocurrency as reserve currencies? That would be a spectacular development because they can't inflate those. They can't control those.
China, like Russia, has a capita gross domestic product slightly above Mexico. I'm surprised it's not bigger than that. About 1/6 of the U.S. China's yuan value is based on its economic growth continuing, now forecast at 5.5% for 2022. Whatever China holds in Russian rubles has lost more than 40% of its value in mere weeks, but that's come back. The Russian ruble is back. It went down for a short period of time, and it is right back to where it was. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, and we'll definitely keep an eye on it here. Coming up, we're going to get into the top 10 survival crops. Conan, where's this list coming from?
This is from askaprepper.com. I don't know that I know that we talked about some foods that you should grow last year during about this time. By the way, this is
planting season.
This is planting season.
I also want to say, take this list with a grain of salt, though, because you said before the show even started tonight that you weren't growing ghost peppers after this year.
These are sustainable crops that you could store, a lot of without refrigeration, for many months, that will sustain you for a good long time.
You gotta have some spice to make it good.
Peppers are not on the list, Arya.
It doesn't matter.
But I do grow them. So this is the top 10 foods to grow for survival from askaprepper.com. We'll get right into those in just a second.
There's more on the way, and time for you if you want to weigh in on this, whether it's $1 or prepping, growing food, crazy dogs, whatever is on your mind. You can join us, 603-283-6160. You can take control of the airwaves here on Free Talk Live at 603-283-6160. More coming up.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. President Joe Biden has for the first time accused Russia's President Vladimir Putin of committing genocide in Ukraine.
Your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide in half a world away. To help deal with this Putin price hike, I've authorized the release of 1 million barrels per day for the next 6 months from our Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
Biden's comments don't represent an official designation of genocide by the U.S., which is a determination made by the State Department. Biden was speaking at an event in the U.S. state of Iowa where he announced new measures to try and bring down the price of gasoline, which recently hit record levels. Officials in New York say they are still searching for the suspect behind Tuesday's mass shooting in a subway station. At least 16 people were injured when a gunman opened fire on a train during the morning commute. Law enforcement say they have a person of interest, but nobody in custody. FSN's William Denzelo reports from the scene of the shooting in Sunset Park, Brooklyn.
At a press conference, law enforcement have said that they now have a person of interest in connection to this subway shooting. They say that this person, the keys to a U-Haul that was being rented under his name had been found at the subway station. However, law enforcement are keen to add that they don't know whether this person had any connections to the shooting. We understand that 2 smoke grenades were thrown, and then a suspect in the shooting opened fire and hitting at least 10 people. Now, Mayor Eric Adams very much addressed the issue of gun violence at this press conference. He said that this isn't just a New York problem. He says it's an American problem. He added that it's impossible to clear a flood when water is still pouring into the basement.
2021 was the deadliest year in U.S. history. New data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention showed nearly 3.5 million more people died in the U.S. last year than in the record-setting year before that. FSN's U.S. correspondent Rachel Silverman has more.
The CDC says the main reason for the increase in deaths is COVID-19. More than 415,000 people in the U.S. died from COVID-19 in 2021, compared to 351,000 in 2020. The coronavirus is not the only reason 2021 was the deadliest year in U.S. history. The death rates for cancer, diabetes, chronic liver disease, and stroke also rose, as did deaths from drug overdoses.
In other news, U.S. markets closed lower on Tuesday as new data showed inflation growing at 8.5% from a year earlier, the fastest rate in more than 40 years. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us right here. The number is 603-283-6160. We got time for you if you want to weigh in on whatever is on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. Tonight, it's Ian.
Aria.
And Conan.
You can join us online. Head over to freetalklive.com. You can enjoy features that we have for you. We even have a video streaming site. Well, we actually are on a bunch of them, but the one that we like to talk about is Odyssey. You can go to video.freetalklive.com and please follow our channel there on Odyssey. We are not only streaming there nightly, but video archives are available for years. It's all there over at video.freetalklive.com. Conan, you've got the top 10 survival crops, and it is planting season, at least up here in New England. It probably was planting season earlier.
It's been cold crop season for a month now. So you should have put your potatoes and your onions and you started your cabbages indoors. You should have started them a month ago.
Okay, should have. Is it too late to start them?
Nope. If you can put them in the ground right now, you're good to go. The problem is ground prep, and a lot of the problem, and a lot of what I have learned over the years is you kind of have to start now before the collapse. You have to start training yourself and figuring out what works and what doesn't. And there are crops that I have problems growing here in Keene all the time. Crops that I used to eat in the South all the time, like okra. You can just throw okra over the fence and in the dirt, and it'll grow, and you'll be getting all kinds of crops. Here, it's just too cold at night. It's just it really does require a certain temperature. But I can grow peppers though here in Keene, but not okra.
Could you do it in like a greenhouse or something?
If I had one, and it's on my list. But that's just something else that I have to do when I could just be growing potatoes.
Yeah.
And this list is really going to go over the crops that store well.
Is this
and are calorie intense?
And is this a list that pretty much anyone can grow, or is it only for certain regions?
This is there's sweet potato on this list, and that is not something that I've been able to successfully grow here in Keene as well. So, but in the South, you need to be growing yourself some sweet potatoes because they grow easy and they store well, and they're good. And they're just good. I really miss them.
Your issue is that you're trying to grow sweet potatoes in New England. You have to grow yams, Conan.
I don't even think you can grow yams here, and they're not the same thing.
Oh, they're not?
No, they're definitely a different animal.
See, I thought I was making a joke.
I didn't know that, yeah.
Yeah, sweet potatoes and yams are different, and sweet potatoes are not related to regular white potatoes.
Okay.
When the collapse happens and you are in survival mode, you need to consider your long-term food needs.
Before you go on, are we going to know when the collapse happens?
You can't know. This is like the Revelations. You don't know when it's coming.
Until later. You don't know until afterwards.
You have to just start doing it now.
Or is it like happening now, right? Because, when is it going to be the collapse? Are we in the middle of a slow motion collapse?
When is the American Civil War? Is it going to start a year from now, or are we already in it?
I think there probably is a moment, some sort of catalyst, some huge life-changing moment that makes it clear that, okay, yes, we are in fact in the midst of the collapse.
I would say this inflation that we've been talking all night is indicative of what we're truly in. We're in the collapse.
I think it's coming.
So when the collapse happens, you need to do this. Whatever food you have stored away will eventually run out.
Before the collapse, you need to do this.
And then you'll have nothing in your pantry. For this reason, you need to use the time you're eating through your food stores to grow your own food. Food that will be ready when your stores are gone. Perhaps the most important thing to understand when it comes to growing food for survival is that some foods are better than others when it comes to ease of growth, nutritional content, caloric content, and ease of storage. For this reason, you need to have good knowledge of the best foods to grow for survival, particularly if you have limited space or are trying to decide which types of seeds to stockpile. Because that's the other thing. You got to, you can buy seed from the store, but I'm telling you, if there's not food on the shelves, I'm guaranteed they're not going to have seeds on the shelves either. So you need to figure out what seeds. And seeds have a shelf life as well. Some are only a couple of years, some will last 10 years. But they're different, and it involves you trial by error, figuring out which ones work and which ones don't. First one on this list. Actually, let me just step back a little bit. All right, so the hardy foods. First, when it comes to growing your own food, nothing is off limits. All right, you can grow your peppers if you want. I'll grow some hot peppers for you because I'm going to have too many reapers.
When the collapse comes, I will buy them from you with gold.
Good. I accept goldbacks and crypto. You can grow anything you want.
I imagine crypto would be hard to use in the event of a societal collapse.
We have lots of goldbacks floating around in Keene. Well, those will become the staple currency here. You can grow anything you want to include in your diet, and your summer months will allow you to have a great abundance of food. Things like tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, and broccoli are all wonderful foods to grow, rich in vitamins and minerals. However, these are not the hearty foods that will get you through your winter, particularly when your available methods of preservation are limited. If you know how to can, though, grow as many peppers and tomatoes as you want. I can a lot of tomatoes, and that's just something that I really basically eat with everything.
Well, tomatoes are fantastic. They can go with everything, except pancakes.
I'm wrapping my head around that one. I'm thinking you're absolutely correct on that one. Let's just about a potato pancake.
I thought about this, like, what can you not put
good.
tomatoes with? And the only answer I came up with definitively was pancakes.
A potato pancake with ketchup on top?
Wow.
Wow.
What just came out of your mouth? Pancakes with ketchup?
Tomato paste. Ketchup.
With a potato pancake.
All right, are we thinking about the same potato? A potato pancake is like
a hash
browns.
Okay.
Yes, that's
Okay, well, they call them that.
They go hand in hand.
You don't call it a potato pancake.
Ideally, you want foods that, once harvested, can be stored as is or dried and stored for use over the winter months. For this reason, the following are the recommended staples to plant and grow for year-round sustenance, starting with the Three Sisters. And I have never been able to do the Three Sisters program, which is corn with beans growing up the corn and squash growing at the base.
Can't work here is what you're saying?
It's dumb. Every single time the squash doesn't get enough light at the base and can't do its thing, and the beans that are growing up the corn stalks pull the corn down to the ground, and then you got corn stalks all over the place.
So they do grow. They just don't want to grow. You shouldn't grow them together, is what you're saying.
Well, according to the myth of the Native Americans, this is what they did. This is their specialty, the Three Sisters system, where they would grow these three crops together. And I'm just not sure it actually works. Now, I know that I've seen diagrams of different setups where you're not growing them right on top of each other. They're spread out in such a way that they are able to complement each other. I just have not been able to do it. I just grow my squash in one section. I grow my corn in another section. I grow my beans in another.
But you are doing those three.
Absolutely. Okay. Not as much corn, because we'll talk about why in a second. But the first one on this list, definitely recommend it, beans. Beans are one of the best staples for so many reasons. First, they are very high in protein, vitamins, and minerals, and they are also very high in calories, providing lots of energy required for survival. There are two types of beans. You have your pole beans, your vining beans, which you're going to grow up a trellis, or if you're going to do Three Sisters, grow up a corn stalk, which I'm not recommending. And then you have your bush beans, which, just as they sound, they're going to grow low to the ground in a bush format. I grow both. A lot of the beans that you wouldn't want to store as dried beans are going to be your bush, your pole bean types, which are growing on trellises. A lot of the beans that I can as green beans, which I absolutely love, are going to be your bush beans. But I grow right now. I'm 5 different varieties of beans, and I grow them every year. It used to be very tedious to me picking all those beans, and it definitely is for the amount of food that you get. But I don't know. I can.
If you're starving,
I can so many of
care.
them. It's so easy to can. The process is so easy, and they're so good. They're so delicious. This is one of my staples that I just can't do, even though it is tedious getting in there and picking one bean at a time. A lot of people don't like it just because of that reason. Next on the list is corn. I don't recommend it because it basically is for the small gardener.
Takes up a lot of space.
It takes up a lot of space. You don't get a whole lot of product out of the space taken, and
you can't eat a whole lot of it.
And
either.
it depletes the hell out of your your soil content.
Oh, really?
I would have thought the point of corn was like high energy, though. It's basically a sugar snack.
Yeah,
right?
It's sucking up all the nitrogen out of it's just like grass. It sucks all the nitrogen out of your soil. It ruins it, so you can't really use that again unless you have a good winter. You sow a good winter crop down there that revitalizes the soil content, but it takes up so much space. Nah. Now, if you've got acres and acres of just sitting there, and you have cattle and or pigs and or chickens, yeah, grow some corn, man. That's the way to do it.
Of the top 10 survival crops coming here, Conan sharing a story from, where was it? Survival what?
Ask a Prepper.
Ask a Prepper. More coming up here. You can join us as well at 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
This is the first time I've heard your program. I'm hearing this person talk about what a wonderful thing it would be if we had legal drugs.
Yes,
I don't know
Sandy.
where you're getting your information from. I think you've lost your mind. I'm telling you. Oh, you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear reality.
I want to hear everything
You
you
don't
have
want
to
to hear
say.
reality? Okay,
Please,
well then,
knock me over
stop
with
acting
reality,
like
Sandy.
a 12-year-old, you know? I'm telling you what about the war on drugs. If you see people on drugs, you might change your mind.
Man, look,
No,
my wife works at a drug treatment center, lady.
Oh, good for her.
There you go.
Good for her.
Sandy, I've
Okay?
smoked copious amounts of marijuana.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that a bit. That's probably what's wrong with your brain.
I've been around plenty of people that have taken
You got a
drugs,
fact
Sandy.
for me, Sandy? One of them? Fact?
I don't have statistics.
Sandy, we're not asking people to smoke marijuana. We're just saying, let's not make it illegal.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen Line, 641-793-0191.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want here in the remaining moments. 603-283-6160. Ian here.
Aria.
And Coney.
And we're going to go back to your calls and thoughts. Don't forget, you can join us online anytime you want. We do have our social media site. We run the server. It's a Mastodon server, which means it's open source. That means it is free. It's free software. And it's not run by a big megatech corporation. Like I said, we run the server. You can go over to social.freetalklive.com. You can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners there. I was doing some live tooting, as they call it today, from the courtroom where Joa, who was our co-host until he got his license suspended, he couldn't actually physically get to the studio. He had, I guess, a domestic issue with the young woman that he was living with who was accusing him of things, and that was heard today in court. So if you were curious about what happened there, you can follow my post today. I did a summary of that over at social.freetalklive.com. We don't have a verdict yet in that particular case, but we'll keep you in the loop as it develops. So check that out, social.freetalklive.com. We go back to your phone calls and thoughts, and then we'll continue with the top 10 survival crops. First, Andrew is in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live, Andrew.
Oh, no, I'm in Tennessee.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, that's where I was at for a couple of years.
I apologize.
Clarksville.
You said Santa Fe, and so I jumped to a conclusion.
I'm sorry. No, I said Tennessee, but sometimes my because I was on speakerphone earlier. So.
Okay, so I misheard Tennessee as Santa Fe. All right, then. Well, go ahead. What's on your mind?
Well, the story I had, I was just got nostalgic about Conan talking about animals, and when I was about 6 years old, I remember staying with my grandfather, and there was a big ice storm, and he was raising cattle at the time, and we had to go and check on the cattle, and one of them was pregnant, and she had broken her leg. She fell on some ice, and my grandfather, rural Tennessee, he's not a veterinarian or anything, but somehow he figured out how to go and get his tractor and pick up this cow by the legs and birth her calf, and the calf lived. And I remember as a child witnessing it and just thinking how much life goes on, whether or not you try to avoid it or not. Life is out there, and it just gave me an appreciation for things in a way that I can't even
explain it.
To explain, yeah.
I think that moment that you witnessed, and I saw many births, and we did lose one. We lost one Holstein milk cow giving birth. And like you, the calf survived, but the mother did not. But I've seen many births, and seeing that such a large animal, and seeing that process. Because most people, they don't get to see any type of birth. Human, whether it's even their dog or their cats, and seeing that and witnessing that and being a part of it really brings you down to earth. And
it really brings things full circle in a way that if you don't witness it, you don't understand it, and it's really carried with me. And I think it kind of created the like an independent person that there's people that are just spectators that just spectate life, and they never get to actually experience it. So if you're a spectator, it's easy to criticize, but if you're actually experiencing, it's a different thing.
It's a game changer. And by the way, the spectators that you're talking about are the people who think their chicken comes from the store.
Andrew, thanks for the story tonight, man. I appreciate your thoughts.
Hey, I respect you guys, and I just want to say, just keep doing what you're doing. My heart's in the same place yours is.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. Let's go to, I believe, West Virginia, 304 area code. You're on Free Talk Live.
That's right. This is Bob from West Virginia.
Hey, Bob, what's on your mind today?
One thing you missed was you grow your vegetables on a south-facing slope. You folks are in a mountainous area, correct?
No, we're in a valley. We're in a swamp.
You're in the swamp?
Well, there's mountains in New Hampshire, just not right here.
Oh, okay. Well, if you have what you want to do is grow it in a south-facing slope wherever you are to make sure that you get as much sunshine as possible. So that's something I do. I can too.
Yeah, absolutely. All of my gardens are facing this, are going from east to west. The length of them, that is, and they're all facing. And I do plan on growing tall veggies like corn and all in the back, because I know that they're going to they're going to shade everybody out. So I don't put them in the front on the south end, as you mentioned. And I've got my
south-facing slope is what I always do here.
But we don't have any slopes here in Keene. We are basically in a old lake.
Okay, I'm talking about all the people out there listening and listening.
Absolutely, that is a very good point.
Anything else,
there's
Bob?
definitely
here's
some
another
slow
thing. When you
land here,
can
though.
meat. When you can meat?
I can chicken, pork. I don't get pork anymore because I can't afford this stuff, but I can chicken every year. Sometimes on the bone. Sometimes on the bone. Sometimes I will pressure cook it first. I'll pick it off the bone, and actually, I'm finding that's the way that I like to do it.
Yeah, I do it at 241 degrees.
I pressure can mine for 90 minutes at 10 psi. I don't know what the temperature is actually.
Yeah, I do temperature, and I make sure there's nothing in it that's going to kill me.
There you go.
Botulism
I don't want that to happen. Also, I use I'll hunt rabbits. Rabbits pose for you. They're easy to shoot.
They are, but I'll one up you. I harvest my own. I grow my own, so I can just go out there whenever I want one.
You grow your own rabbits.
Instead of having to actually, I don't like hunting unless it's like back porch hunting, which is illegal. I'm not saying people do that.
It depends on where you live.
It depends on you are.
Well, it's just for eating. You know, I mean, you got to eat something. Let's say there's nothing on the shelf at the store. You got to do something about the protein intake. So I would say that would be something good. But
if I was to lose my rabbits and my chickens, I tell you what, they are thousands of squirrels.
There are a lot of squirrels.
I live right on the edge
of this. It takes a twosome. You got to have the other guy around the tree to scare the squirrel around to your side so you can pick them off.
Bob, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate the advice and the thoughts. Conan, let's keep this thing going here. See how many more of these top 10 survival crops we can
Number 3 on the list. Definitely recommend it. Easy to grow, easy to store. Winter squash.
Okay.
Butternut, spaghetti, Hubbard, and pumpkins also fall in this. Very easy. Just kind of.
You can use almost all of it, right?
The only thing I would say about winter squash is it takes a lot of heat, a lot of oven temperature to process. I don't know how many of these you can eat raw, but they do store very well. I am still eating squash that I picked off the vine in October, maybe even August. I think I picked them in August, and they're still well to do. Now you need to have a nice storage basement like I do. You can't leave them out in the garage.
Okay.
In a wet, nasty garage. Winter squash, easy to grow. Definitely recommend it. You can, and this is all.
And you just set them down in the basement. You don't prep them in any way.
I keep them dry. So you don't want to put them on a wet basement floor or anything like. But yeah, no prep. Okay. Now there are crops that you would want to prep like carrots, and we're going to get to that in a second. The next one on the list, definitely recommend potatoes. Easy to grow. You get a whole lot of them for the amount of space that they take up, and they store very well. Some potatoes are better than others. Some will rot. Some have a shorter shelf life than others. Like russet potatoes will last a good long time. A lot of white potatoes tend to start to develop issues a little sooner than the hardier, thicker skinned russet potato. Carrots are on this list. Not as easy to grow. But once you figure it out and you don't mess with them and you've got them in good soil that's going to work with you, they're very easy to store. You store them in sawdust I just store them in the same dirt that I pull them up out of. I'm still eating. In fact, I just ate the last couple. No, I still have a couple carrots left, but most of them went back into the ground because carrots are a biennial crop, which they only seed in the second year. So I picked my favorite carrots from last year, and I'm putting them back in the ground this year, and they're going to go to seed. So I'm going to have millions and millions of seeds.
You put a whole carrot back in the ground?
Bunch of whole carrots, a good dozen of them. Okay. Yes, that's the way it works.
I didn't know that.
The other way to do it is just to leave them in the ground and they'll last through the winter. And if it's nice dry soil, if it's wet, nasty soil, they might rot. But you leave them in the ground, then the second year they actually go to seed.
All right.
Cabbages on this list. I eat a lot of cabbages. I do a lot of sauerkraut. I do a lot of kimchi.
Okay.
Another easy crop. I'm sorry. This is not an easy crop if you have moths, cabbage moths. I have found the solution to this problem, and it's not putting nets over your cabbages, which you can do. The stuff that you want to use is called Thuricide, and it actually works. You just spray it on once a week, keeps the moths off, and you can get those cabbage heads, those full monster cabbage heads, make your sauerkraut without all the little wormy doos in it.
Send me a link to that. I'll get it up on the social site for the remaining, 2 or 3?
Absolutely.
Folks can go check it out over at social.
Get them in the ground now. It's the week to do it.
.com. That's social.freetalklive.com. We will see you tomorrow night. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have